Calling to order the regular Park Board meeting Monday, November 7th, 2011. Roll call, please.
Member Segreto? Here. Member Peterson? Here. Member Lau?
Here.
Member Jones? Here. Member Hulbert?
Here.
Member Jacobson? Here. Member Steele?
Here.
Member Neville?
Here.
Thank you. Does everybody approve of tonight's agenda? Any items that they'd like to see removed? Okay. All right.
Need a motion and a second?
I move approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. The adoption of the consent agenda, approval of the minutes. Do we have to do these separately, or can we do these together in one?
Only if someone takes it off the consent agenda.
Okay. Any additions, corrections to the minutes? Do we have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
All in favor? Sorry, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes approved. Community comment. Anybody from the community want to come up and discuss anything that's not on tonight's agenda? Seeing nobody step forward, let's move to item 5A, the Edina Veterans Memorial. John, I believe there's a plan that you'd like us to take a look at.
Oh, there we go. Okay. Good evening, Chairman Hulbert and members of the Park Board. I'd like to go through a presentation that I'm going to tag team with our landscape architect, Bob Koss, tonight. And at the end of our presentation, we'll stand to answer any questions. First of all, a little bit of background. Why a Veterans Memorial in the first place? It's really designed to honor those Edina residents who have served both past, present, and future in our United States Armed Forces. It is really designed to honor all of Edina residents who've made the ultimate sacrifice, especially those who've been killed in action in the past, and to recognize those in the future. And to date, the number count is at 32. What I would like to do, Joseph, you could do for me, we have all 32 in those 5 booklets next to you. If you could just pass those along, the Park Board could look at them. They're all the same. And this was put together by our committee members, Marshall Schwartz, who's done just an absolutely amazing job. To give you a look at them, they're the one. Yeah, those are the ones. So just take a quick peek as I go through this presentation. Another reason for the Veterans Memorial is to really create a pleasant and respectful place to reflect and to honor our veterans. Again, this is not a war memorial. It is a Veterans Memorial. And its purpose is really to honor Edina veterans, not to celebrate battles or wars or conflicts. And why is it recommended for Utley Park? The committee, through a fairly lengthy process, looked at other sites, but the criteria they used is they wanted a place that's highly visible to the public, that both is private and serene space to accommodate this private reflection, but at the same time just a large enough area to accommodate formal ceremonies, up to about 150 people. It needed to have accessible parking and a reasonable amount of shade. Utley Park is also very aesthetically pleasing with the mature trees, and it does have access to public restrooms. And it wasn't until after the committee had chosen and recommended Utley Park, we learned that there was a group back in 1945 that tried to make this happen, and they had chosen Utley Park to be their site. World War II got in the way, and apparently it obviously never happened. Process-wise, just to bring you up to date, historically, if you recall, back on January 12 of 2010, the Park Board approved a staff recommendation to form a Veterans Memorial Committee. We did that, put it in the paper. It was a very open and transparent process. And on the 13th of July, the Park Board approved those 11 volunteer members, many of whom are here tonight. On September 14 of 2010, we recommended that $30,000 be taken from the capital improvement plan, and the Park Board made that recommendation that was later approved by the City Council. As you recall, on December 14, 2010, the Park Board recommended to the City Council to approve the change in ordinance that allows it, that is required by law in order to build a Veterans Memorial on public property. You also recommended a resolution that's required by law to state what is the not-to-exceed dollar figure that we intend to spend to build the facility, which in this case is $400,000, and to also approve a community foundation agreement, them being the physical partner to help collect and disperse the fundings. On February 1st, earlier this year, the City Council approved these four things. They approved the ordinance you recommended to build the Veterans Memorial at Utley Park. They passed the resolution needed by state law to show that we're not going to spend more than $400,000, and made it very clear that the only $30,000 of tax dollars through the CIP will be the limited amount of money coming from taxpayers to support the development of this. They also approved the Edina Community Foundation agreement, as well as that was the same night that they approved the contract to hire the firm of SEH, Short Elliott Hendrickson. On September 13th this year, the Park Board approved the hiring of Robert Eccleston, the sculptor artist from Lake Placid, New York. And I must give also kudos to not just our own committee, but to the Edina Public Art Committee for all of their help in helping us through that process, selecting an artist. He's a nationally known, wonderful sculptor. On October 14 of this year, our office mailed letters to 198 property owners, those properties that were within 1,000 feet of Utley Park, to inform them of three basic things: the open house that was conducted on October 25, tonight's Park Board meeting, and to make them aware of the public hearing scheduled for the City Council, which would be a week from tomorrow, November 15. On November 3rd, we repeated that process and reminded all the neighbors within 1,000 feet of the park that there will be a public hearing at the City Council on November 15, and that's also going to be legally published in the paper. For design, budget, and whatnot, I'm going to tag this off now to our hired landscape architect. I want to introduce to you Bob Cost of SEH, and he'll go through the next set of slides.
Thanks, John. Good evening. So what you're going to see tonight is a presentation that we made to the veterans back in September to offer them the design that we worked on for about 6 months and was approved by them. So this is just a quick agenda of what we talked about: a site review, the updated program for the project, the design concept. There were some options that were presented, the preliminary cost estimate, and then where do we go from here. Oop, of course, I hit the wrong button. All right. So the first thing is just a quick review of Utley Park. Probably don't need to spend a lot of time with this. You folks probably know this park better than I do. But just some of the key attributes. You know, there is parking. There's great visibility from 50th Street. That was important to the veterans. Great pedestrian access. The Pine Knoll, which is very characteristic of the site. You can see the bridge. There's the picnic fire ring. Views to the creek in the winter. Views to the church provide a great setting. The veterans spent some time early in our design process after we gave them several options of where we thought the memorial could be placed. And they placed literally a stake in the ground and made a survey point on that, and from there we refined the design. So from a programmatic perspective, 3 flagpoles that will be illuminated, a focal point or figurative sculpture, in this case an eagle presenting a wreath, gathering space, an area for a podium for about 150 or so people, hard surface that's accessible for folks of all abilities, walkways in a plaza, area for contemplation with benches. So this needs to be a space that is both ceremonial but also a quiet space. Display pylon feature, that's where we're placing the sculpture. The program has since been refined. There will be 5 military service emblems, not 6. The names of the killed in action. Thank you to Edina veterans. Several quotations. There are also seasonal plantings involved. It really will serve as a destination within the park, regardless of whether or not you served in the military. And there needs to be some way to acknowledge potential major donors. So we presented a couple of views. You can see the stake to the left and all to the right. So this is sort of the area and the view that you see in the summertime. And then this was a design character sketch of the proposed memorial. It is a granite plaza. It has a star emblem placed within it that is also in granite. It has some benches along its side and some sedum flowering plants and some ornamental grasses. 3 flagpoles placed to the side, and then you can see the black granite memorial stone that will house the 5 emblems of the services and the bronze eagle. So how does this sit in the park? This is a design that basically sits towards the east side of the park, leaving the western side free and clear of any activities from the memorial where there's active recreation. It utilizes the existing trail that takes you from 50th over to the parking lot and vice versa, and then proposes a new trail that comes from the parking area and the park building and runs you along a walkway that we propose would be made out of bituminous and have some concrete edging to it, and then you approach the memorial from there. From the existing trail, you would actually approach the memorial heading to the north then and traverse up some stairs. So one side of the memorial is accessible, the other side you would need to use some stairs. So the shape of the memorial sort of conjures up a V for victory. So a lot of what's in the memorial is meant to be somewhat symbolic, but somewhat subtle. The shape also allows for the largest gathering and closest proximity to where a speaker and a podium would be placed. So you see the small yellow square and the larger trapezoid. So that also is kind of inherent in using this kind of shape. The memorial feature is placed on access, again, a formal design, which also works with the large pine trees that are on the site. So kind of builds in some of that symmetry, creates a sense of prominence, and places the actual memorial feature kind of at the head of the table, if you will. 3 flagpoles are placed to the east side, representing sort of the east as, sunrise, future, rebirth. It also gives one a great view of the church, so you get, borrow some scenery, if you will, from off-site from that feature. So here's some of the details, if you will, about the design itself. We've got about 1,200 square feet of granite plaza, again, accessible from the new walkway and the existing trail. Flagpoles would be illuminated, so there would be some kind of an uplight so that the American flag can stay up all the time. The granite memorial wall, then, which sits at the end, of the walkway, quotes, names, service emblems, ornamental grasses. We're thinking Carl Forrester, ornamental grass placed along the side, but final details would all start to take place once fundraising has been finished. Steel and wood benches would provide at their backs the opportunity for donor plaques. There's some stadium seat steps, if you will, which happen at the very end of the memorial as it faces the creek. So on either side there's a stairway, but flanking the whole back side, if you will, is an 18-inch step down with another piece of granite there. So it would allow people to actually sit and view the creek or just kind of watch people walk by. So we've got a sort of a variety of ways to enjoy the space. Rain gardens are there for taking the storm water and filtering that water before it gets into the creek. And the access walk and stairway up to the Memorial Plaza is a new feature. This is a cross-section drawn through the plaza, transverse. So to the left side, you see the new walkway that we're proposing. And then the granite plaza itself runs about 48 feet in length. You see the flagpoles sitting off to the side there on the east side. And then you can get a sense of scale for the memorial wall, if you will, that sits about 6 feet high. Atop that would be the bronze eagle and its wreath, and the service medallions, quotations, and you can get a sense for that stadium seat or step that we talked about. And then you can see the dips, basically longitudinal swales to filter stormwater. Here's an example of what we're thinking for the service emblems, that they could be done in cast brass and then placed within the granite itself. So very easy to read, fairly attractive, probably be about 4 to 5 inches in diameter. Some bench options. The one that we're proposing is a little bit different than this, but basically gives you the sense that we're proposing that if it's done with wood, we would use an Ipe product, which is a sustainably harvested, extremely hard and weather-resistant type of wood. It's vandal resistant, it keeps its color, or we could use, in final analysis, metal benches. These kind of details really would be worked out once we got into final design. But the idea here is that if we had donors, their names could be placed in reverence on the back side of the bench. A couple other details. There's a short shelf at the base of the memorial that would allow a place for visitors to place bouquets of flowers, which is a fairly common feature at memorials. And just pointing out that even in future dates, or if, depending on how pricing goes, we could also do bas-relief on the sides of the memorial piece. And just kind of, the stadium seat also provides a place for more interpretation or etching, if you will, of a quotation, because you'll have about 18 inches height with good visibility from the trail. So trying to build in some other opportunities for interpretation or for expression here. The black granite base for the flags also provides the opportunity for a quotation. And then there were some options that we looked at both as a way to address significant donors or to provide other options for quotations or information. So here you see a sort of a small granite column that could be placed at the ends of the walkway. So where do we go from here? We've talked with Bob Eccleston. He's now refining his sculpture and his pricing, and I think in agreement with the city, looking at where he would go in terms of maybe providing some maquettes or some other things to work with significant donors. So we've adjusted the concept plan and refined those drawings. Those would be continually adjusted if we move to the next step to actually to prepare construction drawings for bids, and the cost estimate would be refined. Right now it's at a fairly preliminary nature, and we're carrying about a 15% contingency, and we're here to present to you folks and then next week to City Council.
Thank you, Bob. And lastly, to finish up process, the Veterans Memorial Committee is the one that is charged with doing all of the needed research. And again, like I mentioned earlier, just done a phenomenal job. I'm so proud of all those men who are so passionate about this cause. The fundraising will be done by the volunteers, not staff, just to be clear. But staff will continue to facilitate the committee process to the end. And if approved and recommended by Park Board and approved by Council, then the committee can finally start to launch their fundraising campaign, but not until that point. And construction will not begin until the funds are raised, just to be clear on that. And staff will then be in charge of overseeing the construction management. The recommendation, the action that's being requested of you tonight, and what's been put in all the publications, is to recommend to the City Council the approval of the Veterans Memorial design in its concept as you see today and its location. Being that this has been brought to the open house and in our mailings, making the community aware that we would be accepting any public testimony tonight. This is not what you would call a formal public hearing, because that is going to take place at the council meeting next week. But we'd encourage you to take any public testimony that people might want to. With that, I think Bob and I would stand to answer any questions. And again, I just want to say one last thing about our committee. I'm very proud of these people, the men and women that serve on this 11-member group. They have worked tirelessly and are very devoted to this cause. And I just want to publicly thank them, and particularly our chairman, Mike Corrigan, who was the guy that walked into my office more than 2 years ago and really got this thing going and stepped up to the plate to be the leader of the group, which is what it took to make this to move forward. We've heard this request for many years, and it took a leader like him to make this happen, and I really appreciate that. With that, we stand to answer any questions you may have.
John, I have some environmental related questions. The first question I have is, will any trees need to be cut down in connection with the project?
As currently designed, there is no tree removal contemplated, but I will say that we've got some very mature trees out here, and several of the pines have fairly shallow roots. So we are doing everything we can in terms of placement of the design and manipulating its shape to stay away from those, but there will be site disturbance, and until we get into further final design, do some soil borings and some other, greater depth of investigation, I wouldn't want to say that no tree removal would be required. There's no trees that need to be required to place the memorial in its location, but again, its construction could impact one or two of the trees out there.
And I do love the design, but I was surprised at the size of the plaza area, it being about 1,200 square feet, I believe.
That is correct. It's actually a little bit smaller than that, but that's about an average. Right? And
with granite pavers being so close to Minnehaha Creek, was there any discussion about perhaps using a water permeable paver?
We considered that, and the problem that we run into with that kind of construction is a little bit counter to the permanence and the necessity for the memorial to be extremely accessible. We've got an aging population that we know will be using this facility quite a bit, and the problem that we've run into with porous dry laid unit paving material is it tends to want to shift over time. Even the best of construction and compaction, we will get some movement with that kind of material. So that's why we went with extremely permanent, what I would call museum kind of quality construction. So the granite would be placed on mortar on the top of concrete slab. That would give us, 50-year type of construction.
Will the watershed district have to approve the project?
They will, and we've had preliminary conversations with their consulting engineer, and we've actually, we know that a good part of the park, well, most of the park in this area is in the floodplain, either 100-year or 500-year. So we understand we will need to do a one-to-one mitigation as part of the 1,200 square feet, for example, of coverage, and fill that would be need to place, because the other thing to understand is that the site actually slopes towards the creek. So in order to have a level plaza, we need to do some filling of a couple of feet, and so that filling would need to be mitigated. So what we've done, and you can see it on this plan here, is had a meeting out on site after our conversations with watershed consultants. And there is a portion along the creek bank that is currently full of invasive species, And so in discussions with John and his staff, the thought was that we could use that area for the mitigation of the fill. We'd be removing about a foot of dirt for that area, again on a one-to-one basis, and then native materials, plant materials could come in and be planted. So it's sort of a 2-4, if you will, that we do some mitigation for the plaza memorial, but also then do some benefit in terms of native restoration of the creek bank.
Another question I have is looking at the maintenance, proposed maintenance costs associated. Sure. I didn't see any snow plowing during the winter. Is that anticipated?
I guess I'd have to ask John on that one.
It is not our plan to plow it. If any snow plowing is to be done, it would be done by volunteers of the memorial itself. We do routinely plow our pathways throughout the community, but in this case we would not plow out the Veterans Memorial unless the volunteers chose to do so.
And if it was plowed, then it would be salted, and that's sort of what I'm concerned about.
We would not permit salting.
Okay.
No, not in this case.
And then I have one other question. During migration periods in the spring and the fall, bird migration periods with the uplight, is there any possibility that it could be turned off during the migration periods, bird migrations?
Well, with you mean the flagpole lighting?
The flagpole lighting.
Well, by the proper etiquette is if you're going to hang flags at night, they must be lit.
Okay.
And I suppose the choice would be take the flags down, turn the lights off, or if the flags are up, the lights have to be on. Those are the choices.
Do we ever think about that in Edina about our uplights?
First time I've heard that.
Okay.
But
well, maybe we should think about it.
Sure.
John, of the maintenance costs of $41.52, what is that, cleaning or is that landscaping or what is that?
That is actually a figure that is kind of a worst case scenario, the most expensive case scenario, I should say. That's assuming that we're going to use all full-time maintenance staff, and that's given, their wages with benefits and whatnot. That's how that was calculated. Mm-hmm. It has to do if we had to do it all by staff and no volunteers, that would be the cost on an annual basis. Now, having said that, we're not going to be adding any staff to the mix to get the work done. We would not add, so I suppose arguably it doesn't add cost to the taxpayer, which it doesn't. A few other maintenance things might have to take a little longer to get to, would really be the cost to the city, but not additional real dollars. We're hoping, and I've made a presentation to the Garden Council, they seem to have some interest in volunteering time to do some plantings. We're not quite there yet because we haven't got to that stage in the planning, but they seem to be supportive of that too.
What would the best case scenario be? The best case scenario
the best
for cost?
Case scenario,
what is a lighting cost?
Well, I don't know if we've broken it down to that. If you
In terms of the cost for running the lights?
Yeah.
Haven't done that.
Not to that level.
What your utility rate is.
The other things we could do to reduce the cost if need be is use some of our seasonal part-time staff who are obviously at a lesser wage.
Okay.
So I just want to be upfront that is the absolute most costly scenario you could run into.
May I ask how many parking spots are there? And secondly, any other governmental authorities involved, the county, the Corps of Engineers, Army Corps of Engineers?
Those are both great questions. The parking, I'd be guessing, to be honest. Do you recall how many stalls there are? I honestly don't. So that one I can provide the answer, but I don't have it with me tonight. And as far as the other governmental bodies, other than the Minnehaha Watershed District, I don't believe that the Corps of Engineers gets involved unless there's a change in floodplain designation, would be my understanding.
You may want to check.
Yeah.
Can you comment on the restroom facilities there are aging, I think, and if this goes in, I believe they would need to be replaced.
At some stage, those restrooms probably need to be renovated, and that wouldn't be because necessarily that there's a Veterans Memorial here. The restrooms are there to serve the park there as well as the park across the street. So that hasn't been put on a capital improvement plan yet, and may be able to do some of that with operational dollars between the Park Department and the Public Works Department. But right now, nothing's scheduled.
Let me first echo your commendation of the committee and its work. It's a marvelous effort over the course of time, in my opinion. So thanks to the committee and to you and to everybody who input to this. It's quite a job. The multiple references had been made to a recognition of donations or major donors. And don't we currently have an effort going to review the naming and donations policy? And will we likely be able to have some result from that before undertaking fundraising for this memorial?
That's a great question. It'd be my guess before the donations are secured, I think the naming and donations policy group will have their work completed. And it is the desire of this committee, and it's a lofty goal, to raise even more than what they need to build it. I'm not going to throw a figure at you, but that's their goal. And when it comes to the recognition, they're hoping, if it's at all possible, to have it all done with 4 or 5 major contributors and fill the rest with some of the other smaller donations. And it's been the feeling of the committee from the very start that this is about recognizing the veterans, those who've served, and not recognizing corporations and people necessarily and putting up logos. That's not going to happen. But to respectfully recognize the most significant donors that would far exceed the current donations policy, and the smaller ones would not be recognized in a permanent structure, but possibly in some other fashion. And we anxiously await what the committee comes up with, what the Park Board recommends, and the City Council approves on their work. Does that answer your question? Okay.
Any further comment, questions?
Yeah, I'm echoing Ms. Segretto's comment about the Minnehaha Watershed District. And I know that they are willing to offer grants to programs that meet certain criteria. And I'm just wondering if there was something that we need to do in the design that would affect our eligibility for being able to secure a grant. This might help both sides of funding the memorial and making sure that we're doing right by the watershed. And I was just wondering if you had pursued that thought.
We haven't, from the standpoint of identifying grant opportunities. That's kind of outside of our scope, if you would. And the way the project has been handled so far is that all funding is coming from the veterans. So this is an interesting question that I think, since there's going to be plenty of time before final design and construction would take place, that we'd want to add that to our next steps, if you would. Now, having said that, as I presented, if you remember, we have several opportunities that we've identified in the core design for rain gardens. Those would be sized appropriately based on the runoff. We've done a preliminary calculation on that so that we can pre-treat any water before it would go into Minnehaha Creek. And there's probably some grant opportunities either for the planting of those with the proper, mesic or wet species, or even maybe the installation. So how that would be handled in terms of the grant agreement or the foundation agreement, I'm not sure.
Okay. No, and it's a great comment, and that's something that it would become my responsibility to do. If this gets through to the council and they want to go ahead and go forward with this project, well, then they can begin their fundraising. We'll certainly look and see what opportunities there be for grant money.
Yeah, and I'm just hoping that we're not doing it in the wrong sequence, that if we approve a plan and then they look at it and say, well, if you had only I don't know, used fewer pavers and/or then we would need to come back and say, you know, and I mean this in really well intended. I know that they offer fairly substantial grants and to cities for projects like this.
You're absolutely correct, and our firm does a lot of work in that regard, helping communities get these grants. So we're definitely using the right sequence, if you will, of starting where we are with the concept design and moving forward through discussions, as I said, at this stage with the consulting engineers who represent the watershed. So we've made sure that we've touched base with those people, and our plans reflect their input as to what would be required for approvals from them, number one. And then number two, we really do need even greater level of detail before we would be able to, or John's group would be able to apply for grants, because they'll need to know what the cost of the project would be, what kind of plant material we would be expecting, how hydrologically it would work. So all of that would get done in final design. And in the meantime, we can, you know, John and others can start to identify what those grant opportunities might be and which ones we might be able to actually qualify for the project. So.
And one last comment on the design, and I'm just, I am not an expert, but I know that colored concrete will chip, and I'm a little concerned about the use of it on this type of project.
Understand. It would be integrally colored, and it's only the stairways and the two smaller walkways that get us to the plaza. So we could use plain concrete instead of colored concrete. That's just really a design choice at this point. One of the reasons why we've selected the materials we have, for the most part, is we know they're very durable and would typically hold up to our harsh climate. But you're right, concrete is not, you know, a permanent forever material. It does wear, and sometimes it chips.
Okay.
Thank you.
Ready for a motion, Mr. Chairman?
Absolutely. Oh, yeah, is anybody out here like to, I know there's a lot of people here for the Veterans Memorial. Anybody like to step up? Any comments? All right, I'd entertain a motion if there's one.
Mr. Chairman, I move the Park Board suggest to the City Council.
I think someone.
Oh, please come up. State your name and address. Oh.
Marshall, could use one of the side podiums. Okay. Thank you.
My name is Marshall Schwartz. My wife and I have lived at 5528 Dundee Road for the past 20 years. And having lived in 19 different places, from that perspective, I can tell you there's not a heck of a lot that you can do to make Edina a better place to live and to raise kids and just to be. One of the few opportunities would be to add this Veterans Memorial. It fits, it's very, very appropriate, and I just very strongly urge all of you to give it your full support. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Schwartz. And I was looking at this. This was some really interesting background information on the, how many veterans from Edina were killed in action?
Yes. As of now, we've identified 32 veterans that have met our criteria that have been killed in our nation's wars, beginning with the 18-year-old boy who was killed in World War I and going through the Vietnam War. But it goes back before there was an Edina. Right now, where we're sitting, this location was part of the B.C. Yancey farm. And B.C. Yancey was a veteran of the Civil War. He was wounded during the Civil War. So even before there was an Edina, that thread starts, and it goes all the way through our lives.
That's very neat. You have some great information on the veterans that lost their lives. I mean, where they served, where they lived, pictures of their homes here in Edina. It's really unique.
You know, I can't drive around the city without seeing the houses, and each house has a story, and you can go back and you can think, was there a gold star hanging in that window? From in World War II, the young man who was killed on the Arizona at Pearl Harbor, to the young man who died 3 days before World War II ended. Each of those people has a story, and the young people in the green shirts, they should know those stories, and they should be passed on, and a memorial is a wonderful way to do that.
Should keep this on the lobby.
Yeah, we don't want to leave City Hall.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Schwartz. Okay.
Thank you.
Dan?
Mr. Chairman, I move that the Park Board approve the Veterans Memorial Park concept, and we recommend the City Council do the same, and we thank the members of the committee greatly.
I second the motion.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes.
And again, thanks to the committee, and also a big thanks to our landscape architect, Bob Koss, who has really served the committee very well. Thank you.
Okay. Item 6B is the Edina Aquatic Center swim team use policy. And John, I think what I'd like to do is maybe if we could start off by getting a little bit of background. And then
I'd be happy to frame the issue for everybody, just to recap my report and recommendation.
And then if we could get, if there's a member from both organizations that could maybe step up, and then we could take some public testimony after that as well, too. So.
Okay, I'll keep my comments brief. Just to summarize what you actually already have in your packet. The Edina Swim Club for the last 9 years has, or actually beyond that, of the last 9 years we can recall, has been renting 3.5 hours per day, Monday through Friday, at the Edina Aquatic Center during the summer season from 6 a.m. to 9:30 a.m., Monday through Friday. And the Aquajets come in right after that for 2 more hours from the 9:30 to 11:30 time slot. Now, I know it's been even greater than 9 years, but that's what we have in front of you. I pointed out that the Aquajets currently consist of 25% of their members are Edina residents, whereas the Edina Swim Club is approximately 75% are Edina residents. What is different this year and why it's in front of you, earlier this year, the swim club approached the gentleman who runs the aquatic center for us and does a fabulous job, Ed McColda, and the swim club asked, we would like those 2 additional hours to improve their program and put more of their program at the Edina Aquatic Center at the 50-meter pool. Well, we quickly realized it challenges our lack of an existing written policy on how we deal with such a request. Ed and I kicked this around, and what's in front of you is, if you want to have a policy, what should it be? The other athletic associations, the way we have created an access to public facilities policy, whether it be for the fields, the athletic fields, or the gymnasiums, there is a recognized group for each athletic body. Like for the Hockey Association, we recognize them and give them priority access. They pay an additional fee for that privilege. The same for the gym sports, and the same for all the athletic field sports. We're now entering some new territory, and what makes this a little different is it happens to be at an enterprise facility whose mission is slightly different. I mean, we are charged, and Ed is charged with the responsibility of making sure we are making ends meet at the end of the year, and to manage it like a business. That is one thing that is uniquely different about this. What we attempted to do is to solve this so it didn't have to come in front of you, and ask the 2 groups to get together and try to resolve their differences and come to a compromise. That didn't happen. It's in front of you because it's asking for you to either establish a policy, or you can tell staff to just do what we think is good business and not have a policy. I think those are a couple of options for you to look at. This does not necessarily mean that the Edina Swim Club, should you adopt a policy tonight, that they would have to pay an additional fee on top of their rental fee, because they do pay to use the pool. No, that's a separate issue that I didn't even address in my staff report. But that's the issue as it's framed. That's what's in front of you. Now, the 75% versus we make all the other associations live by a 90% Edina residency requirement, and that's something that came out of the Edina Youth Sports Task Force that followed its way through the Park Board and the City Council. And it fit because they basically all met that requirement at the time. Well, this one's a little bit different. The Edina Swim Club, I don't believe, has probably ever met that requirement. So is it fair to make them, if you're going to go forward with the policy, is it fair to make them live by a 90%? Maybe, maybe not. They have traditionally been around that 75%, to my knowledge, for as long as Ed and I can remember. Well, I hope that frames the issue. You can see why it's in front of you. And with that, do you have any questions of me or Ed before you start taking public testimony?
Is there any differences between the policies between the indoor policy for sport courts and the field policy? Is there a reason why we have two different policies for those sports?
Well, there is a slight difference. The difference in the gymnasium policy, we want to establish one to recognize the recognized bodies that use gymnasium time. And the reason why we had to establish that is because we built two gyms that the city can dictate who has priority access to them. Now, on top of that, they also pay a rental fee. It's somewhat, minimal compared to what someone would pay for a sheet of ice. But mind you, we don't have a priority access policy for the hockey arena yet either, and maybe that will come someday. The field ones, that is their rental fee, is the per participant fee, which is, you just approved the staff recommendation to go from $9 to $11 per participant per season.
But there's no difference in the residency requirement. It's all 90% for...
I'm sorry, I didn't answer you. You're correct. It is 90% there also. Because it has traditionally been, they've been easily past that requirement.
I have a question for Ed. Ed, is there any possibility that swim team practice can be had in the evening hours after the swimming pool is closed to the public?
2 summers ago, we shortened our hours. Instead of closing at 8:30 in June and July, we closed at 7:30. And in August, instead of 8 o'clock closing, it was 7:30 as well. What that allowed us to do was to solicit evening swim club rental time, and 2 different clubs took advantage of it. Aquajets were like Tuesday, Thursday, and Minnetonka Monday, Wednesday. Last summer, we went back to our former pool hours. So once again, we're closing at 8:30 in June and July, 8 o'clock in August. It's my understanding that's too late for a team to get into the body of water, to come in at 8:45.
And so then, what time is the pool open?
For many years, swim team, the Edina Swim Club, started at 5:30 in the morning, and their first swimmers were their master swimmers. Just a few years ago, we pushed them back to 6 o'clock start, which was somewhat of a compromise and a hurt to the master swim program. But we needed to find time when the facility wasn't alive to refresh it. We now have a maintenance person coming in at 10 p.m., leaving at 7. So the Edina Swim Club is our first guest. They start at 6 a.m. They currently swim till 9:30. The last 9 years, they've been followed by Aquajets, which has gone 9:30 to 11:30, at which time we open to the general public. And we run till 8:30 p.m. in the months of June and July, 8 o'clock in August.
So, and I'm reading here the proposed policy, and I just, this is a question, Ed, I guess, or John. But if we maintained, or let's say there is no one who made, according to this policy, if there's no one who made the 75% residency, then or if we kept it 90% to be consistent with all of our other policies, if there was no swim club that had met the 90% rule, then as I read it, then it would go in the hierarchy of these criteria listed below, one being percentage of Edina youth served. Is that right?
That is correct.
Do we, sorry,
No, go ahead.
is it necessary that we make a decision tonight?
Well, in terms of our outdoor season, we're quite a ways away. You know, we open the first Saturday after Edina Public Schools gets out, so roughly June 10th. For the sake of the Aquajets, which I believe is really the Edina, or the swim club in question here, in the event they would not have pool access at the Edina Aquatic Center, I'm guessing they would want opportunity to try to find 50-meter pool space elsewhere.
Yeah, I think that's a better question to be asked of the user groups, not staff.
May I ask, what's in the universe of 50-meter pools within 25 miles of Edina?
We're actually fairly blessed because there's not a lot of outdoor 50-meter pools to be had. 3 of the 4 that I'm aware of in Minneapolis-St. Paul are in this area, Edina, Richfield, and Bloomington. I know St. Paul has one. University of Minnesota is obviously another.
As far as you know, Ed, do Bloomington and Richfield have scheduling issues too?
It would be my hunch that they would have multiple swim teams knocking on their doors. I know Bloomington does have a policy, and I believe their policy requests 75%. I actually looked closely at their policy in drafting ours. I don't know in terms of Learn to Swim programs if either of those bodies have Learn to Swim, and I don't know off the top of my head what time they would open to the general public, which, you know, could mean they have greater or lesser swim time available.
Is my sense right that the Edinburgh pool over on York, which is enclosed and could be used 12 months a year, is that about half the size or half the length of the aquatic center?
Yeah, and one of our swim clubs may comment on it too, but I believe there's 2 seasons. You have the summer season, which is a 50-meter, and the winter, which is the 25-yard. I believe your Edinburgh Park, you know, would be your 25-yard. There's probably plenty of that to go around within the summer season, but it's really that opportunity for the 50-meter pool, and that's fairly scarce.
Thank you.
And this is to Ed, and I'm thinking in terms of whether or not we want a policy. So I want you to address this thinking that way, because we're quite aware of the fact that the pool is an enterprise entity, and that being so, we are going to try to run it so that it is not subsidized by the city. So can you see the need for greater flexibility, and can you speak to that?
Well, the pool is going to be going into its 54th season next summer. I have been there 26 years overseeing that facility, and I think we've done quite well without a policy in the past. As far as going forward, you know, the difficulty today is we do have 2 groups in our room this evening, and they both represent a number of Edina residents. So it's a difficult call for me. Again, survived well in the past. I'm at a crossroads. I don't know if that answers your question. I'm at a crossroads right now.
What maximizes revenue? I mean, it seems to me that you've got the two swim clubs, but they're still, at the end of the day, they're still going to be 5 hours or however many hours it is rented out of the pool. So from a business standpoint, it doesn't, I mean, absent the fact that you're not going to play off of each other, but it doesn't seem to me that it's going to be a detriment to revenue, correct?
Exactly right. There is no revenue loss here. They both would be paying the same hourly rate. It's $12.50 an hour per lane, $100 for the pool. So that 6 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. is full. So there is no revenue loss, one team versus the other team. In terms of total revenues, we just went over the budgets recently. You know, the facility will gross a little over $900,000. I would say between $20,000 and $30,000 of that is that 6 a.m. to 11:30 or competitive swimming. So it's a very small percentage of the total gross revenues.
I get great comfort from from consistency, and if we do decide to implement a policy, it seems to me that at all our other facilities, we have a 90% favored nation, or whatever you want to call it, policy. Now, to rewrite this policy to 75% would be we would be writing a policy to address what's before us tonight. And there's something inequitable about that to me, especially with the long history that we have with the Aquajets. Now, if the two groups could not work out their times, what about a solution where we had a lottery for the times? And put on pause for a minute. Although I do agree that getting in the pool at 8:30 is late, we're talking about the summertime. And our students are not in school. And I know that hockey players are on the ice quite late. And, you know, there must be a way that this could be somehow mediated between the two groups so that everyone is a winner.
Is there any opportunity for being able to extend the hours, going back to a 5:30 or 5 a.m. and extending it on the further side? Is it a matter of cleaning at night and optimizing the cleaning time at night?
Yes, again, as far as opening earlier, you could. Again, we chose to go the other direction. As you know, the majority of our revenue is season tickets, daily admission. It's the general public. The facility is really worn at the end of the day, typically by the middle of the afternoon. We have one maintenance person, comes in at 10. The first task is just to hose down the deck. Our facility has grown over the years. That's a significant job. When he's done with that, he goes into the bathhouse to thoroughly clean the bathhouse. Lastly, what he'll do is vacuum. And the reason why that comes last is that everything needs to settle out. And we already have our guests showing up before he's done with his task. When I show up in the morning to kind of do my walkthrough, it's never quite where I would like it to be. And, you know, I try to get my part-time seasonal to wrap up and make it look presentable for, again, our first guest the next day. My hope was to have maybe gone back, looked at the pool hours, recognizing that 7:30 p.m. was too early of a closing for those that work and want to enjoy it with their families, or even the family showing up after an athletic event. but I thought 8 o'clock would be a fair closing, June through August, and I was hopeful that for the aquajets that would have carved out some time that would have accommodated their swimmers as well. And yet, we could have come in at 10 p.m. and begun the cleaning process. That was my hope, was to carve out 30 minutes in June and July from the public, which is fairly light bathers at that time, and create the additional competitive swim time.
Again, the reason this is in front of you, the Edina Swim Club is suggesting we need a public policy to address this issue. It's not a staff decision. You folks in the council set policy. We'll carry out whatever you feel is in the best interest of the city of Edina. This is a recognized association that has been recognized as the swimming body since
58 is my understanding, so 54 years.
And we're at an impasse where they're asking you to create public policy. Now, you can talk about lotteries, you can talk about a lot of different options ways to handle it. At the end of the day, we have to keep in mind there may be another swim club group who has some Edina residents. And how do you want that addressed? How do we address the next group that comes forward? So the question for you tonight is, do you want to establish public policy or not have public policy and tell staff to just deal with this as the best business practice possible to maximize revenues? I think that's what's in front of you tonight.
I'm very hesitant to make a decision tonight, as our user fees working group is essentially looking at this. I did mention this when we began meeting about a month and a half ago. We are looking at, we're primarily looking at athletic fields right now and the per participant fee, but also the relationship document and what values, what priorities do we have as a community when we are making these decisions, and to set those priorities first before we make case-by-case decisions, I think, is very important. So unless there is an extreme urgency tonight, I would ask that you hold off on a decision so that these volunteers who serve on associations, who have the background and are looking into this, can look at it with a full picture of all the associations, keeping in mind this is an enterprise facility, but instead of just dealing with these two groups.
I think there is a little bit of urgency here with this matter, because I think these groups do need to start to find out where they can secure their pool hours, even though it is winter coming along here. This is not the time, like you said, that they're starting to try to figure out where they're going to be in spring.
Well, I think to make matters even worse, you're going into an Olympic season. So typically registration numbers go up, there's interest, and you also might have a swimmer on one or both of the clubs that has that kind of potential.
I'd like to add one last thing. I think it's also fair to confess, concede, admit that we as staff aren't necessarily doing the best job to plead both sides' cases. Right? We're staff, we're here to serve. You folks make policy, we'll carry it out. So I think it's fair to assume we don't have all the answers on why they think public policy is a good idea or not a good idea, or maybe the public policy ought to be something other than staff has presented. What I would encourage you to do at this point is take your public testimony, learn from the people that are here tonight,
I think we should
and
do
then
that.
continue your debate.
Yeah, let's get a representative from both sides if they're available. If we could do that. I'm guessing you're with the Aquajets.
Good guess.
Good evening. My name is John Waninger, and I live at 6509 Navajo Trail in Edina. I'm also a board member for the Aquajet swim team. 50-meter pools are a scarce resource. There's only a handful in the Twin Cities. They're also very expensive to build, ranging from roughly $5 million for an 8-lane outdoor pool to more than $15 million for an indoor pool. As such, it is incumbent upon swim teams to share these facilities. It is not practical to build or operate a 50-meter pool with tax dollars for one swim team, nor is it fair to hand such a valuable asset to one private club. Is this on the... Every 50-meter pool in the Twin Cities is shared by multiple teams. This includes the facilities in Richfield and Bloomington. As you can see, these pools have similar hours during which they are open to the public, and thus similar hours are available to competitive swim clubs. Because of the scarcity of 50-meter pool time, it is essential that these pools be used efficiently. The Aquajets have about 300 active members, and we're able to get by with about 2 hours of practice time per day. The Gators have about 270 swimmers, but are asking for 5.5 hours of practice time. This would have the effect of kicking the Aquajets out of the Edina Aquatic Center. In a year in which 8 Aquajets are training for the Olympic trials, and 1 Aquajet is likely to represent the United States in the Olympic Games, our community needs to sit down and work out a schedule that makes pool time available for all of our residents. The Aquajets has made more than a dozen requests and efforts to sit down and negotiate time that works for both clubs, but the Gators have not been willing to even have a discussion. We ask that the Park Board look out for all Edina residents. Thank you.
Could you push that piece of paper down just there? I wanted to make sure that everybody could see that and it be part of the public record. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jeff Carpenter. I'm a Edina resident living at 6705 Galway Drive in Edina. Also, for the sake of full disclosure, I'm Edina Planning Commissioner as well. I'm not wearing my commissioner's hat today, but I wanted to let you know that I'm here simply as a resident, as a former swim club president, and a swim parent. The question here is really, who is entitled to the space under the current city policies. When I was president, I was on the task force with the sports task force on the decisions with respect to how we were going to handle our athletic associations in Edina. And I sat through all the meetings, as did all the other members of the task force, all the other athletic association presidents, et cetera. And there was one really driving foundation for what came out of that task force, as I recall it, and as I think the documents reflect, and that was that there was supposed to be only one association to serve each particular sport, and that there was not supposed to be a mechanism for engendering competition amongst them for access to facilities. I remember specifically conversations as it related to Edina soccer, for example, where, as I understood it, and I understand it's still the case, there are constant calls for access to athletic fields in Edina, and a concern about not having more than one association utilizing and handling those facilities for the benefit of the Edina community as a whole. And that's really where we come from in terms of why we're here today, at least from the Edina Swim Club's perspective. We were participants in the task force. We lived through the whole thing. We came out of that with the same sense of assurance that all of the other task force members did, all the other Edina Athletic Association groups did, the feeling that the city was going to stand behind us and support the development of Edina residents in all of the athletic endeavors. And we're here today now, I think, looking at the possibility that the sands are shifting in ways we didn't expect. And I'm sympathetic to where the Aquajets of Eden Prairie are coming from in terms of what they're trying to accomplish. I know that they have a lot of Edina residents on their team, and I don't want this to be a, an Edina group versus Edina group. That's not really what we're trying to accomplish here. But we do have a large and growing swim club, and just as they have a large and growing swim club. We're located in Edina. We've been in Edina all of our existence, half a century supporting and serving the Edina community. And in fairness, Aquajets is located in Eden Prairie. They're one of the Eden Prairie swim associations. I understand that they have Edina parents in their organization and swimmers in their organization, but that's not, to me, that's not really the issue.
Mr. Carpenter, we've been over 3 minutes. If you could just wrap it up, that'd be
Sure.
great.
I'm sorry, I didn't know you were timing us on this. Well, I have a lot of other people coming through the talk, but really what we want to accomplish here is we want to have and would very much like to have the sports association, plan for how they were going to handle all of the associations be applied equally to the Edina Swim Club. We have 300 plus members, a growing club. We have the same kinds of challenges that Aquajets has, but serious concerns about where this will leave us going forward relative to other associations in Edina.
Thank you. There's lights up here, and green, you're good. Yellow, you've got about 15 seconds. Red, wrap it up. So 1 minute when it's yellow? Okay. So if we want to take a little more public testimony, we just ask that we are not repeating the same topics over and over and try to maybe alternate back and forth. So state your name and your address, please.
I'm Sally Gleaden. I live at 5515 Grove Street in Edina. I just thought I'd let you know that I am in 7th grade at Valley View. This season I swam for the Edina High School swimming and diving team along with Aquajets. And I think that it's only fair that the same 90% rule should stand for the pool as well. That stands for the fields and the gyms. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Sally.
My name is Rachel Whitmer. I live at 4706 Sunnyside Road. I'm in 7th grade at Valley View Middle School. My name is Gracie Taylor. I live in Edina and 4600 Oak Drive, and I'm a 7th grader at Southview Middle School. I have an older sister who swims for the Edina High School's girls varsity swim team. Gracie and I both hope to swim for the Edina High School swim team next year. Rachel and I both have younger sisters who will one day swim for the high school swim team too, and both of our families currently swim for Aquajets. We swim at Aquajets because we love the coaches and they make swimming fun and have taught us how to love swimming. One of the things we love about swimming is training at the Edina pool in the summer. Many of our Aquajets teammates live in Edina and go to school in Edina just like us. It would mean so much to Rachel and I and all of our Aquajet teammates if you would help us save our pool time at the Edina pool. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Erica Evans, and I live at 6232 Concord Avenue, and I'm an 8th grader at Southview Middle School. I represent the Aquajet swimmers who currently swim on the Edina High School swim and dive team. The Aquajets team enjoys practicing at the Edina Aquatic Center and has for many years. Swimming at a 50-meter pool is an important part of our training. There are a lot of swimmers on Aquajets who live in Edina, so we would think we should be allowed some pool time. We know that you are looking at a pool use policy, and we respectfully ask that you create a policy that is fair to all Edina swimmers. Thank you.
Thank you, Erica.
Hello, I'm Katie Taylor, 4600 Oak Drive, Edina, Minnesota, and this is Christina Taylor. First off, I think that we're really blessed as Edina residents that we have choices, and that when my children got to do splash night at both pools, they made the choice of which swim team they want, and we're lucky enough that our kids have that choice, that you're going to find the swim team that fits you, whether it's the coaching staff, the peer group that you have there, but we have those choices, and we're blessed to have those choices. As a lifelong Edina resident, the scenario of the Gators taking over the pool and dividing our kids in half when half of them are going into the high school season just doesn't bode well for us as a community, and I think that we can do better. And if we could work this out so that we all have a place to swim, we're all going to come out on top. So that's the last thing we want to do, is just to create a rift in the swimming community. So we just ask you to remember that we all want pool time.
Thank you, Katie.
Hi, my name is Kim Jones, and I live at 4601 Edina Boulevard. My family and I, 4 children, just moved to Edina, Minnesota from California, where there's an abundance of 50-meter pools. We've been a swim family ever since our oldest daughter decided that this was the sport she loved. One of the criteria for moving somewhere was that there was a coaching staff where we believed they would nurture her, take care of her, and would share the philosophy of some of our family values, and that there would be access to a 50-meter pool, which is very difficult to come by in the Midwest. We also looked at moving into the Chicago area, and there were no 50-meter pools in many communities. We were grateful when we saw Edina had a 50-meter pool and multiple swim clubs in the area that had access to training at 50-meter pools. I would like to, I guess, echo what Katie Taylor was saying, in that the choice of a swim club is a huge asset to the community, whether it's for time or peer group or coaching. And finally, I would hope that the Edina Park Board could come together and encourage the leaders in the swimming community in Edina to get along in the name of sportsmanship and in wishing the best for all the athletes who are training to meet their potential, whether it be to swim for the Edina High School swim team or the Olympic Games. And remember that it's not about monopolizing a facility for the betterment of one niche of our community, but utilizing a valuable community resource for the betterment of all who want to achieve their goals. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim.
Hi, I'm Amy Anderson. I live at 6909 St. Patrick's Lane in Edina. I've been an Edina resident for 10 years, and I have 3 children who swim for AquaJets. One thing I'd like you to know is that AquaJet's swim team is one of the top 10 swim teams in the country, and that's out of more than 2,900 teams. And the way swim teams work, we're not an Eden Prairie team, just as Gators isn't totally an Edina team. We're a swim club, and it just happens to be where we swim as an Edina resident. The AquaJets also have multiple swimmers who have qualified for the U.S. Olympic trials in 2012, and one of those swimmers has a very good shot of making the Olympics. Not having a 50-meter pool would severely jeopardize all their training. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy.
Hi, my name is Lisa Whitmer, and I live at 4706 Sunnyside Road. I have 3 daughters who swim for AquaJets, and I also have my oldest daughter who is currently swimming for the Edina High School girls varsity swim team. And I think the other 2 will also be following suit sometime soon. I just wanted to point out that if you are considering adopting a policy for the pool, that you consider using the 90% Edina resident level, which is consistent with the other fields. Choosing a percentage of 75%, which would favor the Edina Gators, would be putting at a disadvantage 80 Edina swimmers, Edina residents who swim on the aquajets. So please, if you do choose to go with a policy for the pool, remember that we have many swimmers on the aquajets who will be affected by your decisions. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa.
My name is Kate Lunston, and I am not from Edina. That's why I have blue on. I'm the head coach of the Aquajet swim team. I've been the head coach for 8 years, and I live at 8986 Deer Run Drive, Victoria, Minnesota. We don't have any meter pools, 25 or 50. So I just wanted to, and I'll do it quickly before all these lights shine on me, is just share with you a little bit. Being involved as a swim coach for 20 plus years, and I was, when I was a swimmer in Edina, on the Edina swim team back in the day, and swam at the outdoor pool. But the difference of how I look at it and how we run our team is kids that are just starting swimming, we don't put them in a meter pool. We put them in a 25-yard pool. We feel that yard swimming is very important for young kids, and so with little kids, we keep them in the yard pool, and I'm hoping Edina does the same. I don't know. With the older kids, though, the 50-meter pool and the training of the 50-meter pool is important. The faster kids need that distance, and when I say that 9 years old and up, and to put us at 8:30 at night, and we actually couldn't get in the pool till 8:45 at night, would be a real strain and a struggle on our team. And I want the best for Edina, and I really mean that. I'm not just saying that to make you guys think it's wonderful. I want both clubs to work together, and we've always asked, and I've called the coaches to ask that we could work together and work this out to make it good for both clubs. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kate.
My name is Alex Adams, and I live on 5129 Wooddale Glen, Edina, Minnesota. And having been swimming for almost 4 years, and then hearing that Gators has taken over the pool, it's really bugged me, and I hope you can do something about it. Thank you.
Thanks, Alex.
Hi, I'm Steve Foster. I'm not an Edina resident, but I am a graduate of Edina High School many years ago. It's hard to follow that comment, but a couple things that I want to reiterate, and I'm sure we've touched on them a few times, is a key issue for us is that we just wanted the policy to be consistent with all the other policies, not only for the different facilities, but also for, in order to be a member of the Edina Youth Athletic Association, I think there is a 90% Edina resident threshold as well in that to meet that criteria. So we're just looking for something that's consistent. And in doing so, that's going to bring everybody to the table, which we've tried to, and again, as Kate reiterated, we're trying to work with the Edina Gators. We don't want an adversarial relationship. We're trying to work out a compromise so that we can all succeed. And I think that's really something that we've gone out of our way to try to accomplish that. And one of the other things, by having the 90% threshold as a key for the Edina residents, I think that does promote competition because it not only allows the Edina Gators and the Aquajets, but it also can bring in other swim teams that do have Edina residents as well, so then it'll actually raise the level of competition for that rental time as well. And I think, as we've mentioned before here, by lowering that percentage, it really provides the ability and the authority for deciding up to 100 swimmers that are residents. They get displaced by really a private, non-Edina funded team that has the decision authority to determine that non-residents get priority over residents, so that the residents get displaced in lieu of the fact that the Edina team can then allocate up to 100 swimmers that can swim in that Edina pool. So, thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Name and address, too. You didn't include that.
It's 1841 Nicholas Way, Eden Prairie, Minnesota.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Leslie Nicholson, and I'm president of the Edina Swim Club. I live at 5617 Beard Avenue South in Edina. The Edina Swim Club was founded by Art Downey in 1957 and is called Edina Home for 54 years. The last several years, the Edina Swim Club has been growing consistently each season, rising to over 300 members. As our numbers have increased, so has our need for more pool time. The Edina Swim Club has been inquiring about more pool time at the Edina Aquatic Center with the City of Edina for the last couple of years. Ed McColda has been very responsive and gracious in his time this last summer and visited us several times during our summer season to see for himself how crowded our lanes had become. After the summer season, Ed offered us some additional pool time at the Edina Aquatic Center for next year to accommodate the Edina Swim Club's growth. The Edina Swim Club rents 8 different pools during the school year, September to June, utilizing every City of Edina pool and Edina Public Schools facility, plus the surrounding communities. It is often a strain to our coaches and our families to travel to so many different locations during these 9 months. The Edina Aquatic Center offers us a sense of a home pool in our own community for those 2 months during our summer season. It is more efficient for our club to have all of our coaches and swimmers in one location, and quite a luxury to our families, especially those who have multi-age swimmers, to travel to one pool for practice. As swimming is unlike most sports in that we have all ages of youth athletics on one team, we're able to foster that team spirit and team unity by being all together in one location for those 2 months. The Edina Swim Club hosts 2 splash nights each year, welcoming any swimmer who is ready to join a competitive level swim club. We welcome any Edina resident, both youth and adult, to become a part of the long tradition of Edina swimming. We have over 199 Edina residents, both youth and masters, who are part of this swim club. We have been renting pool space from the City of Edina for 5 decades, and the Edina Aquatic Center since it opened in 1958. We are proud to invite other communities into our city during the year to attend meets that the Edina Swim Club hosts. The Edina Swim Club has always appreciated the support of the community and has donated over $25,000 in equipment and funding to help maintain the City of Edina and the Edina Public Schools facilities. We are proud of our accomplishments as a representative of the City of Edina, both individually as well as our many Edina Swim Club swimmers competing for the Edina High School. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
John Wanninger again. I just wanted to make a couple of comments to some of the questions. First of all, the Aquajets presented a letter.
I don't think we can do that. We might call you up for some questions in a bit, if you wouldn't mind hanging out.
Sure.
Thank you.
My name is Todd Hansen. I live at 6621 Ashcroft Lane in Edina. Just a couple of things to address here, and I just want to refocus in case you are not there. Though these individual stories are interesting and, I empathize with several of them, the issue is, as someone spoke earlier, long-term, what are we going to do the next time another club has other Edina residents, and what does 54 years of commitment mean to your community? We've marched in the parades, we bought equipment for the pools, we have been a part of this community, thinking we were a part of an organization, a part of an association. And as we said, and some Aquajets spoke, that they are blessed to have a choice. Let's point that out. They do have a choice, and they chose to go to a different place, and that is fine. But we, as an organization, have this, we are blessed to have this pool in our community, which we have paid for, and our club has been a part of for years. And we have now grown. We are not kicking anyone out, and as much as they say they don't want this to be adversarial, it's pretty interesting that many of their people are using that language. We don't want to kick someone out. We are just growing into the rare resource that our community has built, which we have been a part of for 54 years. And we're just looking to find a way to do that within the community that we've supported and that has supported us. Thank you.
Thank you.
name is Scott Jones, 4601 Edina Boulevard in Edina, Minnesota. I just wanted to talk about the idea of revenue, since that is an important question that's been raised tonight and not discussed by any of the people that have approached. It seems to me that a single group renting a facility doesn't present the same opportunity for revenue that two or more groups renting the facility would present. And I understand that it's a small part of the revenue, but at the end of the day, swim teams are willing to pay for access to these valuable resources. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott.
Hi, my name is Amy Murphy. I live at 5316 Ayrshire Boulevard in Edina. And I just wanted to make a couple of comments. Being new to swimming with my family, my 9-year-old, kind of on a personal note, has found her spark in swimming. And as we looked at swim teams outside of the summer, I honestly didn't even know there were 2 teams to choose from. We looked at, or 2 teams in Edina, I should say. We looked at names of teams. One was called Aquajets, one was called Gators, as my understanding is. So to hear this tonight is fairly unsettling, and not even knowing that you were choosing to be part of a club that was going to have this kind of discussion. So, you know, as an Edina resident, I certainly support the notion of sharing a resource, reusing and recycling the resource that we have for as many people that can use it. In addition, and these people know much more about the swimming culture than I do, but as I understand it, long course practice and training is vital to a swimmer's growth, training, and ability to compete. And without that opportunity, I think many, upwards of 80 kids are going to be at a loss, really. So thank you.
Thank you, Amy.
Hi, my name is Mitty Hansen. I live at 6221 Ashcroft Lane. I am a former Edina Swim Club president, but I'm actually up here to speak about the revenue issue because it concerns me what I'm hearing. Everybody in the room pays taxes for these facilities. If we are going to go to the highest bidder, which is what it sounds like we're advocating for with no policy in place, merely to raise revenue, both teams could be out. Because it could be a Minneapolis team comes in and says, we're willing to pay this much. So I really want to make sure that you keep that in check, that you are looking at something that looks at a percentage of Edina residents. I'm not looking to, as we said earlier, kick anybody out of any space. But at some point you have to set up some kind of hierarchy. And it's logical in my mind that whatever team in the future has the largest percentage benefits from that, and that we don't go to some sort of let's make as much money at the Edina Aquatic Center as we can on the backs of the taxpayers. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Van Donkersgood. I am an athlete on Aquajet swim team, and I am not an Edina resident. My address is 9497 Painters Ridge, Eden Prairie, Minnesota, 55347. I'd just like to make a comment. I'm fairly active in the politics of swimming. I'm a member of the United States Swimming Rules and Regulations Committee and also on the board of directors of Minnesota Swimming. I serve athletes. That's my job. And I see this all the time. This happens all over the country, that adults get mixed up in something that we don't need to be mixed up, that they do not need to be mixed up in. You have to remember that there are athletes here who from both clubs, and it is a disservice to one club to move another club out of the pool. it would be in the best interest of all athletes if we could both conserve our pool space. Thank you.
Thank you. Maybe we'll take two more, one from each side, if they're there.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Jeff Rodriguez with the Edina Swim Club, head coach, have been for 14 years. Very excited about that, to have represented the community for so long and have also been intertwined with the community in all the different 8 locations that we have to use. Again, our biggest issue is pool space. Our team has grown within over 100 kids in the last 3 years. We were currently at 175. We're now over 300. Last summer, we used the outdoor pool because Edinburgh was down and also Valley View was down. Southview was being used by the community ed services that Edina graciously offers. So we've tried other options. Our team is huge. We're very excited about that, bringing that to the community. Point blank, Aquajets is out of Eden Prairie. We've got a larger percentage. We're trying to basically serve our community, and I would just like that to be known that everyone here would like to work together, but we have served 54 years of service within the community, and there are other places to be rented. The U of M is widely available, and I've also looked at that. We've also offered up other space for Aquajets. If that is not a choice that they would like to use, there is other options out there, because I've also done the research and know that there are other options. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. We're tapped out. All right.
Good evening. My name is Paige Bingham. I live at 4626 Edgebrook Place. I have 2 daughters. They have swum on both teams through the years. We currently are on the Aquajets team. It has been a wonderful opportunity to have both teams available to us, part of our community, and something that our children could be part of. There were times when I thought my daughter would only bleed gators, and then one day she tried Aquajets, she enjoyed it, and she continued on with that. So there is an element that there is self-selection. There is a distinction amongst the groups. There is an element, as you can imagine, with any teenager, where sometimes things feel good, and sometimes they just don't. Sometimes it's ready time to move on. What I didn't understand in the conversation tonight is why there wasn't more sharing of a discussion about a common shared resource. Why there was a feeling that because skaters had Edina in their name, because they had a 72%, that they were the ones who should have the monopoly on the Edina Aquatic Center. Again, this is a public resource. There's limited resources, as you've heard, from all over the nation. And in this case, it does not seem like it's the right place to be assigning a monopoly to one team who's not willing to share. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Let's have a little discussion here. Could somebody help us out here? How soon does a decision on this matter need to be made? Yes, I don't know if it would be somebody from Edina Swim Club, somebody from Aquajets. Give me an idea.
I think from our perspective, obviously the use policy is as proposed, is at 75%, which then puts us at a big disadvantage as far as finding a pool or swimming at Edina. So then we have to get to that point where we have to go and find another 50-meter pool to swim in. As Jeff Rodriguez said, there's the U of M, which we haven't explored just because we felt there was a pretty good opportunity we would get to be able to use the aquatic center. I think from our perspective, we haven't gone down that road, but obviously there's a very limited supply of 50-meter pools in the Twin Cities, and I think even if we had a decision today where we couldn't use the Edina Aquatic Center, I think we'd be in rough shape to find a 50-meter pool to swim in.
Just briefly, I think it is urgent because As we look forward, we've already budgeted. Have already budgeted in September for this next summer season, thinking that because the extra hours were already offered to us, that was part of our budget. If we are not allocated and not able to secure extra hours, we will need to look and see what we're going to do.
Have you seen indications from potential swimmers that would necessitate needing that much additional pool time?
Well, we will have a splash night again in March, and normally per splash nights, we get anywhere from 40 to 50 new swimmers. And so, yes, I do see. We had also used the U of M last year in addition to, because we were so big, the hours we did have at the Edina Aquatic Center were not enough. And so we also went to the U of M to rent pool time in addition to the hours we had. And that was why we had been asking Ed for additional pool time for next year as we continue to grow.
Thank you. Okay. Just thinking out loud here. I think one of the reasons why we're here is that we see it oftentimes where we don't maybe have a formal policy. We get ourselves in a position where something like this comes up. And we had recently an issue with 2 other associations discussing field time. And I think we're tasked here to try to at least see if we can work through a policy, and if we can find consensus on if there's a policy that we like.
And I can agree with you on that. I do think that we should have a policy, and I agree with what I was hearing from Kia and Louise, that I think one policy would make sense to me. I am wondering, Kia, if you could let me know about how long you think your committee's going to take to develop the policy that you're talking about.
Well, certainly we can put a sense of urgency. We haven't had a case come up where we've needed to move quickly since we passed the fees at our last meeting. We've been meeting every 2 weeks, and last meeting, we're meeting on Wednesday again. Last meeting we've done our overview and decided what we're really looking at. We're looking at, what's the labor cost, what's the staffing policy, what are in-kind donations from different associations, what's tournament policy, and the relationship document. So we've gathered this information, and it's all available, and we're ready to start making decisions, to setting the priorities to frame this policy. So I would definitely say we would have policy by the next park board meeting. I wouldn't say let's bring this to the working group and have them make a separate policy just for the pool either. That's not my intention. It would be an encompassing policy. So I'm afraid to give a specific deadline, but we are moving along quickly with the amount of information we have been given.
And part of that will deal with the residency and the type of statements made in the policy that I'm looking at here in the background.
Right. So is our priority Edina residents? What's the impact for residents who aren't part of associations? And I think there's more to it in reading the proposed policy. I mean, it's very extensive and not included in any of our other policy documents. So coming up with a policy that speaks to all the different groups would be beneficial.
And I'm not even sure if, you were mostly focusing on fees, right? User fees? And that's not what I really think that that's not where we need to make decisions, especially right now on this topic.
Correct. I don't think we have been focusing much on the dollar amounts. It's about where are our priorities as a community. So if it costs this much, are we making a decision that we believe in and acknowledging this is the price we want to pay for this sport or resource. So I think it does tie into this question.
Okay. And my other topic, though, that I was just going to, I'll raise it to the fee and user group, working group, is that I'm wondering if the first priority, if no one meets the 75, or what I would be voting for would be a 90% rule, but if no one meets a 90% rule, then this first one, which is percentage of Edina youth served, well, I would also want to talk and hear other people's opinion on whether that should be percentage or total number, because quite frankly, we could have a very small group of 30 swimmers, and they have a high percentage of Edina residents on that group, and it would not serve our community at all well to have them have total monopoly of the pool. So I'm just wondering if there are things within, I am certainly not ready to approve the policy that I'm looking at right here. And so I'm just wondering if anybody else wanted to comment on that.
And that's why I'm fearful of making a decision tonight, because if we do make a decision on a percentage different than the one already established, what if there are new associations down the line, or what if one association fails to meet the 90% and other groups can step in? You know, you are setting precedent tonight.
Is there any reason why the Edina Aquatic Center would have a different percentage than the other facilities that we have in Edina? I mean, I know most of the facilities are at 90%. Why the Aquatic Center at 75?
I'll respond to that. I think it's fair to say, and I think Mr. Carpenter expressed it well, having worked through the Edina Youth Sports Task Force, where those percentages came from is what we learned is all the other athletic associations were either at or above 90%. Now, I would venture to guess, had the scenario been that they were all around 75, that it might have been a different policy that you see today. In this case, the swim club currently has, and they can correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's probably been at or below 75% for the majority of their existence. What 90% would do to their club, I can't answer that. This is primarily a staff recommendation at this point, and you could make it 75, you could make it 90. I think maybe we may require a little more dialogue and learn more about what it might do to groups. The statement made earlier of 90% would create more competition for the pool. I'm not sure how that works, but that's something that should be considered. But it's basically a reaction to what has been and what currently is, which is the same knee-jerk reaction we had when we formed the other policies in the first place. That's the best answer I can give you, but it's open for debate. If you're going to set a policy, what makes good sense for public policy? And it may serve the park board well to think on that. It doesn't sound like it's extremely urgent to decide this tonight. You might want to debate this, ask staff to chase answers to other questions that you may have. That's the best I can do for that.
Let me just ask a what-if question. If the policy was put in place that required 90% Edina residents for the city team, whatever that was, and nobody met that criteria, what would be the basis of choice? I mean, how do we translate the percentage of Edina youth served? Could you walk us through exactly what calculations would be made and how an allocation of usage or a 100% usage would be determined under those conditions?
Well, the calculations would be, what percentage of the residents? Now, how would we as staff react? I think we'd have to have the swim club answer that question for us. What is going to be the cause and effect here? Does 90% even make any sense whatsoever? I don't know the answer to that. I think more research, and I think it's a good question you bring forward.
Let me clarify what I'm trying to ask. Let's say that nobody meets the 90% criteria, but we have 3 applications for pool time. One club has 60%, one club has 50%, and one club has 40% of its team at those citizen percentages. However, the one with the smallest percentage is the largest team, and the 40% is more absolute Edina residents. What is the basis? Do you see where I'm going? On what basis are you going to choose and allocate pool time under a policy such as what is being suggested here?
Well, that's exactly why staff would recommend, if you're going to establish a policy, it ought to be one that's realistic, that fits and best serves the community at large. Wouldn't recommend you go to a policy where no one could meet the criteria. It wouldn't be good public policy to begin with. So I wouldn't recommend you go there in the first place, would be number one. And to go through the scenario, what would we do if no one meets it? Well, then it's bad policy, in my view. I think what I would do is bring it back to the park board and revisit the issue. I think what's in front of you is, are we going to recognize one organization formally, as we have with all the other sports? And if so, what should that percentage be? I think that's what's in front of you here.
I just go ahead.
What about the suggestion that the leaders of the groups meet with whoever Mr. Keprios designates on the staff and a couple of park board members in the next 3 weeks, meet 1 or 2 meetings, and come up with a solution? If you can't, we'll make the solution for you, but would rather not, and I can assure you the city council would rather not. Somebody's going to get happy and somebody's not going to be happy. But I think if you work with an outside bunch of folks like a good staff member and maybe a couple of park board members, it may be helpful.
I really agree with you, Dan. I'd rather see this be worked out between the groups and staff and a park board member or two than vote on it this evening.
Ed, can you walk us through scenarios, because I know this came up with regards to basketball when we were doing the youth task force stuff, because there was a rogue basketball club, if you will. Are effectively all the gyms and a lot of the field space monopolized the way that the pool time? I mean, you know, effectively you've got one club who's going to use the entire 5.5 hours, depending on how the policy lays out. But it was my understanding that in basketball or even baseball, football, there's at least some scheduling wiggle room, if you will, that allows other groups to still use the facility, but the swimming seems to be unique. I just wonder if you could comment on that.
Actually, I represent a number of the youth athletic associations, and for like our gymnasiums, to start there, it is the Edina Basketball Association. They're now boys and girls, and they pretty much utilize all city gyms, probably mid to late October through April. When we're looking at outdoor fields, it's the Edina Baseball Association for those baseball fields. Soccer is the one that, again, I believe was brought up, and I think is probably closest where you're going to have Edina residents playing on more than one club. There's been Edina residents that have traveled to Bangor, Keelix, Thunder Academy, and they've come back looking for Edina facilities. We don't have enough facilities for the Edina Soccer Club and the Edina Soccer Association and Edina Lacrosse, all looking for that rectangular spring-summer space to even meet their needs, let alone to help the Edina resident that's now on a non-resident club. So if the question is monopolizing I would say, again, in the time I've been here, I've never scheduled another youth athletic association in a gym or an athletic field. We have found some space for some adult teams, but it's on the weekends when the youth are not playing.
So, and I have one other question for you, Ed. What I heard in some of the discussion was that the Park District may have promised additional time to the Gators. Can you comment on that?
Yes, I can. And actually, I'm glad you brought that up. That is a slight misstatement. What I will tell you is there was communication that began in the spring. The communication or request came from Jeff Rodriguez, the head coach of the Edina Swim Club. So call it April. He requested in 2012 from 6 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. My response, and there was a number of emails exchanged, was the first thing we needed to do was get through the summer season. We were in the second year of a Learn to Swim contract with Martha Burns Swim School. At the conclusion of the summer season, staff would again assess, A, can we refresh the facility? Are we getting the facility clean? Because that, again, is the bulk of our business. Secondly, do we want to continue to offer a Learn to Swim program? That's why it's a 2-year contract, not a 5, like it was 9 years ago. If we do want to do a Learn to Swim program, we need to go out and solicit bids, which we did in the month of September. So nothing was offered until we knew we had a Learn to Swim proposal in place. What if that Learn to Swim proposal was planning to use the 50-meter pool to teach lessons? That's the way it was from 1958 until 10 years ago. What used to follow the Edina Swim Club was the City of Edina, Park and Recreation Department. We taught Learn to Swim lessons from 9:30 to 11:30. When we ceased that operation 9 years ago, John Foss was the first successful Learn to Swim partnership. He taught Learn to Swim in our plunge pool, which is where the water slide drops out, and started a developmental swim team, which became the Aquajets and has grown to be quite large and successful. But so we wanted to first, can we refresh the facility? Second, Learn to Swim. And if we do Learn to Swim, what bodies of water do they want to teach in? We sent out proposals to Foss Swim School, Martha Burns Swim School, and the Edina Swim Club. All had shown an interest. We received 2 proposals. The successful proposal was Martha Burns. She stated that she would like to rent the plunge pool, diving well, step and entry. So now the City of Edina had from 9:30 to 11:30 to rent. We did not know this until the middle of September. I know we're early November. However, the Aquajets at that time knew there was a proposal in place from the Edina Swim Club which wanted all 5.5 hours. So there was first a meeting with John Keprios, myself, 3 representatives from Aquajets, and now today at the Park Board meeting. So nothing in terms of the Edina Swim Club or Aquajets has been promised for next year in terms of the 9:30 to 11:30. I see no reason why the 6 to 9:30 would change.
Just thinking in terms of what we have passed that the user fee working group will not affect are those fees. So those have been set or will be set potentially. So maybe it would be fair to propose that if the user fees working group did not have policy to present to the park board at the next meeting, that we continue with the no policy for the upcoming season.
And then be back here again.
Correct. And not acting on a sense of urgency.
But wouldn't it be just as urgent next year if the same thing pops up and everybody's
No,
taking
that's
the
not what
time?
I'm saying. So the user fees working group would come up with a policy, but if we're unable to create that policy by the next park board meeting, it's unfair to push that out further. And so when we do develop that policy, it would be for the following season.
Well, I'm going to make a motion. I'm going to make a motion that this park board adopt a no policy for the aquatic center.
I move for discussion.
That was a second.
Oh, that was. I second and move for discussion.
I think ultimately we need to work through a policy. I think that Edina has a history of great athletics, whether it's hockey, baseball, soccer, and we have documents for all of those. They're recognized as the association. There's a residency limit or a requirement for each one of those. I think at some point we need to just roll up our sleeves and do the work that I think we're being tasked to do, because we'll be here again then a year from now, and we've got 100 people that have taken 4 hours, 3 hours out of their night to come here. So I'm just not really sure. I think it's the 75% or 90%. I think that's what we really kind of need to discuss. What do we want to set the limit at? I think we do need to recognize one of these groups as a swimming association, and I think it's clearly got to be the Edina Swim Club. They've been there for over 50 years. And this isn't about pulling swimming privileges away from Edina kids, because I don't think anybody wants to do that, you know. It's a unique situation where it seems like we've got the Yankees and the Red Sox out here, and I don't know the differences between the two groups. You know, is there a difference between training methods in one or the other? You know, are they two separate type of, was one more of a learn to swim program? Is one more of a competition type of a swim program? Does anybody have the answer for that? They're the same, basically the same thing? Okay. No, we can't do that. So,
Can I ask a question, Chairman? When you're done, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Did you have a question, John?
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just a little clarification on the motion. If this motion passes, what action are you asking of staff at that point? Would it result in staff, you make a decision for the 2012 season? Or is the motion to establish a policy prior to the 2012 season? I guess that's, we can get clarification on where we're going with this.
Well, we can come up with a recommendation through the fees committee, but then that has to get approved here, and then it's got to get onto the city council agenda as well, too.
Well, in light of the timing that I think the clubs are looking to make their decisions, I don't see that we're going to be able to get a policy in place for the 2012 season. So eventually, yes, I would like to see a policy, but I don't see us clarifying this policy this evening, or I'd rather not, as I said before, have a policy, but I made the motion to make something happen this evening.
We appreciate that.
Well, I think it makes most sense to have a consistent basis, so that would be the 90% ratio, because, you know, as a city, we're charged with taking care of the residents, and I think the 90% has been consistent across all the associations. And, you know, to that end, you know, we can talk about the percentage somewhere down the road, again, with regards to all the associations, whether 90% makes sense or it's 85 or 80, but it almost seems like, you know, for right now, 90% seems to be the number that has been decided when we did go through the youth task force, which was nearly a year-long process. And I can't recall if that was brought up. But am I able to amend Louise's motion? Or? Well, I guess I would suggest an amendment that we do adopt a policy down the road, but to amend Louise's motion to put it in the hands of staff for the 2012 season, and they can rely on Park Board as much as they want in terms of establishing some sort of a panel to help sort out this issue. But you know, moving forward, I think we need to figure out a policy for how this is going to operate in the future.
For the sake of our secretary taking minutes, could you paraphrase your amendment?
So I guess just a general comment is that I think 90% has been the number decided on in the past, and I think that's the most fair moving forward. That has really nothing to do with my motion. But the amendment to the motion would be to empower staff to establish a way of dealing with the matter for the 2012 season, and the staff, you know, would have the ability to, again, appoint a panel, as Dan had mentioned, or otherwise figure out some way to resolve this dispute between these two clubs. But in the future, I think we need to, you know, dictate staff to come up with a policy moving forward in 2013, I guess, and beyond.
Okay, so that sounds like the original motion, essentially.
I think it's different. It's pushing the decision onto staff instead of us making.
Well, that's what Louise was saying.
Louise's no policy decision, so that's saying that we are not making any changes. But his amendment would allow staff to then decide what the policy should be for the 2012 season.
Well,
Again,
can I
just-
amend my motion to,
Mr. Chairman, if I could.
please.
Just for the sake of just following proper Robert's Rule of Order. I believe you're trying to make and paraphrase an amendment to the motion, and you need a second before you can discuss the amendment. That's how it goes. So
Yeah,
again,
to simply paraphrase my amendment would be to adopt no policy tonight, empower staff for the 2012 season.
Can I second that? I'll second that.
now you can discuss.
All right, discussion. I guess what I don't like about that is we're just deferring the problem down the road rather than just tackling it right now and putting an awkward situation in Mr. McColl's hands. So I guess I'd prefer to try to hash it out and have it. I don't know, what other information do we need to gather tonight in order to have a discussion over 75% or 90%? But, I mean, we can vote on it and see what happens here.
Well, my understanding is that if we choose 90%, the de facto result of that is that staff will still have to work with the two clubs to try and negotiate a solution, which is, I think, why it's in front of us in the first place, because they were having, I'm not quite sure what the difficulty was, but it sounds like there was some difficulty in accomplishing that. And I'm not actually necessarily in disagreement with that at the moment. I think that's the result. If we vote 75%, then perhaps there would be a different result, and I'm not really prepared to go there, I think, tonight, because it would be inconsistent with another youth sports policy, another sports policy that has already been put in place at the 90% level. And I think there needs to be a little more shaping and wisdom put together in terms of a policy for the aquatic center.
Okay.
So that's the only reason, one way or the other, I'm kind of in agreement with what Dan was saying. Let's push this into some sort of a mediation situation where people can come together quickly for this upcoming season, and then 2013, perhaps we have a different solution, when they're also, as two clubs, more prepared to deal with it, because they can start forward planning with more than just a few months to go.
And you've sat in on those meetings that where there has been, what is the likelihood that there will be an agreement if we do this?
First, I'd like to back up to that previous question and my lengthy answer. Without a policy in place, Leslie Nicholson's comment is correct in terms, I've always seen my role as a Park and Recreation Department employee to honor the request, whether it be a gymnasium, field, or pool time, of our recognized body. Again, I've been here for 26 years, and I've known one swim club, and that's the Edina Swim Club. The reason why, even once the Learn to Swim proposal was decided, because we had a number of Edina residents on the other club, Aquajets, that had a strong interest in the pool space they had used the last 9 years. So I felt as staff, I was caught in between. But without a policy, I would go off the same guidance and guidelines I've gone the last 26 years. And again, in all the documents I've seen, when we have our president's meetings, it's Jeff Carpenter, Mitty Hansen, Leslie Nicholson, they're the ones at the table. As hard as that is to say, without a policy, that's the direction I would have gone.
And that's consistent. That's, what I'm hearing is that that's just consistent with the way that you handle all youth associations.
That is consistent with, again, all facilities that I schedule. My question, which went back to the Edina Swim Club and was answered, A, they were growing, and I did see a number of young families and the growth in the lane lines. B, they wanted to consolidate. They wanted to bring all of their coaches and all of their participants, all their swimmers to one venue. And then I also talked to them to make sure that the rental rate was for a competitive swimming rental rate. It was not a learn to swim. It was not stroke classes. We have a learn to swim. But they confirmed it's competitive swim training for the added volume they've got, and again, consolidation of their team.
Okay, can I discuss something else in the middle of this discussion here? Since this is a enterprise facility, and I'm thinking in terms of also whatever we do is going to pertain to the hockey arena, probably, if when we get there. So I'm just wondering, as you mentioned that you do proposals out, bids for pool time use for Learn to Swim programs, which serve Edina residents and other residents. Have you ever seen the model that you put bids out for pool time use for competitive swim teams?
I haven't. And again, for most of the time the Edina Aquatic Center or Edina Municipal has been in place, it's been a single swim team, the Edina Swim Club. 9 years ago, we had an opportunity where the 50-meter was now available for either the Edina Swim Club to expand at that time or a second swim team, because we ceased running our Learn to Swim program there. Mitty mentioned it too. I don't know that I want either one of these groups competing in terms of I'll pay you 200, I'll pay you 150. I think the rate that's in place is a fair market rate, and
I understand, and I actually agree with that. I just had to throw that concept out as budgets get tighter and as we look at trying to be a little more creative toward our financing.
Okay, we've got a motion, a second, an amendment and a second. So if we were to try to restate those and vote on those, is now the time? Is everybody ready for that, or do you want to talk about this?
You need to vote on the amendment first.
Vote on the amendment first. Okay. So the amendment, Todd.
To empower staff to figure out a policy, if you will, for the 2012 season. Not a policy, but yeah, to determine a solution for how to allocate those 5.5 hours.
I think what I'm hearing you say is if you just empower staff to do what we think is right for the 2012 season, it does not necessarily become policy. And I can tell you right now what that decision will be if this passes. Would you like to know that before?
Well, I think Ed made it pretty clear.
Yeah. Well, when it comes to enterprise facilities, we need to do what's good for business. And there's some wisdom to say that these are both great customers. And if the park board and the council are not willing to take the step to create policy, we're going to remain status quo. They're both great customers. And until we're prepared and willing to have a policy that allows, and we don't have excess capacity here. And the other thing that leads me to that is the next thing might be the arena. And when you talk about percentages, the figure skating club is considerably less than 75% residents. And what would be the next group to come in and say, well, we've got a higher percentage than they do. So we may accept a policy that ends up shooting ourselves in the foot as far as good business sense. So if you leave it for staff to decide, that's going to be my decision. Just so you know before you vote on this. Unless you want a policy at this time, that's how I would handle it, right or wrong.
Okay, now that we've got, do we need to vote on, I mean,
We
there's
need to
one,
vote on
yeah.
the amendment first.
Okay. You got a question?
I think there's a question here.
I'm sorry. I think I heard two different what staff would do. Am I the only one?
No. Again, reminder, staff, it's our job as staff to carry out policy, not make it.
Mm-hmm.
If you're unwilling to make a policy, we're going to carry on with business as we have, unless we are directed to do otherwise. I think what Ed has done in the past has been a wonderful job. You're being challenged by a group to create policy. If you're unwilling to do that, then I'm going to maintain status quo.
Okay. And the motion is for next season, so I can appreciate that we don't have time to make policy, create a written policy tonight. And so what we're trying to do is figure out if status quo is how you are currently dealing with the pool in hours given to each club, or is status quo that a youth sports association that has status.
Status quo would be the same number of hours they each got this past summer season. That would not change.
Okay.
So for clarification, I would ask that Todd withdraw his amendment and say that staff maintain the hours as set was the previous. How did you just state it, John? Sorry.
Well, you have an amendment on the floor.
Right.
You have a second, and you need a vote to carry it and make it any more complicated than it already is. I think you need to call the question.
Could we have a restatement of the amendment that we're going to vote on first and what the original proposal was?
I think the original proposal by Louise was to not establish a policy this evening for the aquatic center. My amendment to the motion was that we empower staff to determine how to allocate the hours as best they see fit for the 2012 season.
Was there not also something about having a sit-down with the groups and staff too in there somewhere? No.
That was a suggestion, not part of the actual motion.
Was there anything about moving toward making policy for future years, starting with the 2013 season?
That was also a suggestion, again, not part of the formal motion.
Okay, but let's have a vote on the amendment here. So, all in favor of Todd's amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Kia. Okay. All in favor of Louise's motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Nope.
I would like to make a motion, though, to develop policy for the following year.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I'm not sure this is an emotion, but are we then also saying that Kia is going to provide us with the first input toward establishing this policy? Is that what
We
we're
will
talking?
still continue working on it.
And how long will that be? You said next month possibly you'll have something?
Now, we don't have the sense of urgency, but we will continue to work as quickly as we can.
Thank you.
All right. Well, I guess I'd like to thank everybody for showing up for such a wonderful, riveting evening. Yeah, go get dinner, homework, get to bed. All right. 6C is the Edina Senior Center presentation. Yeah.
This one's a little,
Huh?
come here, we're past.
We already did that.
Being that I don't see Sue in the audience,
Yeah.
I think, and I'll blame myself, I think what happened is Sue assumed that, no.
You can come into the city offices and talk to.
Yeah. Would you like my business card, sir? Sure. Feel free to email, call, whatever. Oh, here she is. I take it back. She is here. Sue, you're up. I didn't see her. Before we begin, we have the folks to close the door behind them and remind them that their noise carries through that glass and interferes with the recording. Just before Sue begins, I want to let you know I did hand out to you a copy of the budget figures, being that the senior center is not what we call one of our enterprise facilities. It's handled through the general operating budget as part of the Parks and Recreation combination administration and recreation budget. Sue's salary is accounted for under administration, and the expenses of the senior center itself are covered under the recreation part. What I also handed out in your, before the start of the meeting, are some memos I have written to the file that show you the partnership that we have with the library. The library has the duty to maintain all of the interior for maintenance, and it's our duty to maintain all of the exterior, which includes grass cutting, the irrigation, snow plowing, and whatnot. And at the end of each season, we have this condominium association, as we call it. We get together and we true up, if you will. And as you'll notice in those memos, that the city always ends up paying the library to square up, so we pay an equal share. So with that, I know Sue's going to give you a presentation unless you have a question for me.
One quick question. Who owns the facility?
Okay. The facility is owned by the city of Edina, at least everything outside the footprint of the building. And then there's an agreement to show what the ownership is of the library and the senior center. It's in a separate legal document.
So the city owns the senior center and Hennepin County owns the library?
That's correct, in a legal agreement through a condominium association about this thick. And I'd be happy to present that to you if you'd like a copy.
No, I don't think I need that, but I'm just trying to understand. So there is depreciation somewhere that is being charged for the use of that building to the city, which does not show up in this budget, right?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Can you all hear me now? I wasn't sure.
So I think you can just use the regular. I think she'll turn it on.
Is it on?
There you go.
Okay. This is the first time I've appeared in this room, so bear with me. The last time I actually appeared before with the park board, we were sitting at a table. It was very casual, so this is a little bit different. I've been with the city of Edina for 33 years. The end is coming, and I feel exactly the same about the job today as I did at the very beginning, and that's that I absolutely love my job. I've been fortunate, as you know, many people have, in having a job that they love to go to every day. And it's the people themselves, the participants, that really, you know, just keep me motivated at all times, and they really keep me on top of everything, too. And tonight, John Lundquist, who's the chair of our advisory council and also the president of our, or chair of, or president, I'd say, of our golf league, will speak after I do. So he's got something else he wants to tell you, a little bit different. We started out actually in about 1969 at the TCF Coffee Room. And from that, when 7151 York was built, the city of Edina was granted the lower level. And as it turned out, we used half of the lower level. And we were there until about 1989 when we moved to the community center, the Edina Community Center. We were up on the 3rd floor. And parking was just terrible, and it was just hard for the seniors to get up there. The school did not charge us anything, but we did a lot of improvements. We put an elevator in there, and we also, put central air conditioning, and we, fixed it up a little bit. So to this day now, we still have a nice relationship with them. So that was a wonderful thing. And then in 2002, we moved to our present location, which is 5280 Grandview Square, located right over west of Highway 100. I don't know if any of you, Bill we know has been there, but I'm not sure if any of the rest of you have ever stopped in. If you're in the libraries upstairs, of course, we're married to the library, basically. It's that kind of a relationship that we do our best to get along. So the people that we serve at the senior center are active, independent people who are 55 years or over. And we certainly do not discriminate people with disabilities if they've got a caregiver or if they have some, if they've got a motorized vehicle or whatever to get around, and we're happy to have them join us in the activities that are over there. We have about 1,300 members, and we have about 50 different programs that we offer to them. I sent you, within your packet, you should have had a newsletter and probably a little overview of what the activities are that we have. Our most popular activities are card games and our trips. And Bill Lau, who's on the committee with you now, helped us get started with our duplicate bridge. For years, we tried to get duplicate bridge to get going. And all of a sudden, it just took off. Bill helped coordinate the whole thing, and we have it 4 times a week. So it's been very, very popular. The other things that we have are sheep's head, cribbage, 500, and I think the population, the general population that we have are people that played cards for fun. That was their recreation at one time, and it's just wonderful for keeping their minds clear, sharp, whatnot. So I'm sure in time that probably will change a bit. But Mahjong, Mexican Train, a few of those games are also very popular at the center. Our trips and tours are one of the main things that brings seniors into the center. They hear about our trips and tours. It's very easy to go to a play and be dropped off right in front, have great seats, and be able to come out, hop on the bus and go when you wonder where you're going to park or how you're going to drive, to get to a place like that. So that works out very, very nice, and that's a nice way to get people, to come. Each of these activities that you see in our newsletter is headed up by a volunteer. We have 80 different volunteers that help run the center. And if it wouldn't be for them, really and truly, the center wouldn't be the great place that it is, because they are the people that make it really, really go. I serve as someone that helps coordinate it, helps advertise it, helps support them, that sort of thing. But they really are. Bill was one that did it also with us for our duplicate bridge group. We have other people that he's probably trained in to be able to do that now, too. We have special speakers. This past year, we had Dr. Najarian, we had Don Stoltz, and we had Bob Solheim from NC Little. And so we try to bring in people. Of course, 2 of them had written a book that wanted to talk about that, so that was fine. We were glad to meet them, and we had a question and answer period afterwards, and so that's been very, very popular. We have a fellow coming in December who's going to talk about 100 years at Dayton's. And he's got pictures, and he's got all kinds of things and memorabilia that he's bringing in, so that should be a lot of fun. And in a day and a half, we got 80 people that registered to come to the thing. So we do co-programming also. We do it with the city of Richfield, with their senior center. We do our softball, our bowling, our golf, and now we're just starting pickleball. So those are activities that we do with Richfield. We have our banquets together, and Cheryl DeGotis is the director there, and so we work together and try to get these things started. We have over 100 fellows that play in our softball league, and they have won a national championship, so we are very proud of them. But that's their elite team. They have plenty of guys that just play, regularly. But they play in the Dome over at Holy Angels during the winter, and then, they're over at Van Valkenburg during the summer. The City of Edina contracts with public health and senior community services. And so with that, we have a social worker who's basically there, at our disposal. She's there twice a month, but we can call her at any time, and she'll help us out if people are having problems of some sort. We also have from public health, we have flu shot clinics. We have the hearing tests. We have blood pressure. We have anything that might be health related, if we want to have a speaker come in on that. We also have worked with the nursing homes with Martin Luther Manor. We had a very popular program that was called Retain Your Brain. And that was exercise for the mind, and we did that 3 times. It was a 6-week course. It was so popular. Another one we did was a matter of balance, and that's another thing that's really important to seniors, is that they keep their balance. And yoga classes and whatnot from Community Ed are also given over there, and that helps their balance. Tai Chi, anything that can help them to be physically better or mentally better too. That's why in our trips and tours, we always try to go places that where they're going to learn something. We try to do activities where they'll end up, learning something. If I see anything that's new in town, When McPhail opened, we made sure we got there. When the Guthrie opened, we had a tour of the Guthrie. So, and they're very interested in that. The Equestrian Center over at the University of Minnesota was another place that we went. We have an art wall, and it's just a blank wall, and every 3 months we have artists that display their work. And it can be a senior or it can be a non-senior. It could be somebody from the art center. And most of the time they will have their paintings for sale, and the senior center does get 15% of whatever they sell that work of art for. And so that's been very popular. It's our next one will start in December. The one that we have right now are artists that work right out of our center. There's a room that's designated as an art room, and it's rented by the Edina Art Center. And those artists have their works on display, the people that take classes out of there and also work in there on a regular basis. But next month, we're going to be having a fellow who is celebrating the 350-year celebration of the French in Minnesota. So it's going to be Le Voyageurs, and he had some beautiful, beautiful paintings, and also will come and give a talk on them and what they did for the state of Minnesota. So that should be wonderful, too. Adaptive Recreation uses our center on weekends and on Thursdays, and have been doing that quite regularly since we moved in. The Art Center, Edina Art Center, will be using the center on Thursday afternoons, and then they're also using one of our rooms other than their art room on a Friday morning. We're going to try having some, or early Friday afternoon. We're going to try having some classes in there. Apparently they're just getting overflowing over there, and so Michael Fry asked if we could try that, and we're sure going to try to do it, because they'll only have 5 or 6 people, which brings up the point of parking. That is our big problem, parking. And from the very, very beginning, we knew that we didn't have enough parking spots, because remember, we're sharing with the library. We have 80 spots, and we probably could use, again, that many. And I don't know how that's going to ever get solved, but we're certainly working on it at all times, and we're trying to work with the Opus building that's next door also, and we've had meetings with them. Community Education, as I mentioned, also does their programs, and we have kind of an agreement with them that we will not really do a lot of classes, such as the exercise classes or the exercise or like the bridge lessons and things like that, and then they won't do a lot of local trips and tours, so we're not competing with one another. And that's worked out just fine that way. So they use our center for their yoga, for their sit-fit, and then for some of their bridge classes also. So that's been fine. Rentals that we have many daytime rentals. We have Edina Family Physicians, many healthcare organizations that use it. The Opus building next door has used our center because they can just walk right over and rent from us. We've had 50 to 60 rentals already this year. Most of them are during the day. During the evening, the non-paying organizations that use it are the library, the firearm safety. The city of Edina uses it every time they can't find a place. You know, they try to get in there, and that's fine. It's a voting precinct, so they'll be there tomorrow for voting. Twin Cities Harmonica Society is also a group that we have, and of course the Adaptive Recreation Program. John asked me to talk a little bit about the future and how I see, you know, the seniors, you know, and this has been the talk every time you go to a meeting that involves other people doing the same job that I do. And they oftentimes say, you know, what are we going to do with those baby boomers and how are we going to get them in? But, you know, after working for 33 years, and when I started in the 70s, I thought the same thing too. How are we going to know what people are going to do? But really and truly, if you just keep in tune, but it just slowly evolves, whatever it is that you know is going to happen, the seniors will help you move it right along. They'll say, let's do this, let's do that, and you know, you try it, it works, it doesn't work. Years ago we had clubs. After a while, nobody wanted the club. We dropped the club. Nobody even noticed that we dropped it. we don't do any of that sort of thing. They become a support group within one another. If they go to a computer class that we have, they really get along with one another. They go for coffee afterwards. So it's a great place for people to come and make friends and do that sort of thing. So I'm sure that in the future, I have to share something that someone told me, and that is when you try to figure out what seniors you're working with, there's 3 categories. There's the go-goes, the slow-goes, and the no-goes. And that's really what you're working with. You're working with people who are active, ready to go, want to be up on top of everything. You're also working with those people who have slowed down a little bit and still want to, do a few things, but can't do a lot of walking or their attention span or their attention time isn't that long. And then you have people who can come in or just love to get the newsletter just because it's something to read at home, and they really don't make it over to the senior center very often. But I really do plan on retiring in November of 2013. So in thinking about who would take my place, the thing that I think about most of all is got to be somebody that loves this population of people, because I sit out in front all the time. I think my main job is to welcome people, to make them feel comfortable. A lot of these people are widows or widowers and feel just, as if they've got nothing, left to do. John can tell you all kinds of stories about when he became a widower, what he did, but he's such a positive force. But we have, people that come in and they really are scared. They don't know what to do. And we want them to feel welcome, that we can make them a part of the group. And before you know it, they might be leading something, or we hear them laughing, and nothing makes us happier there than seeing that sort of thing. So it's been a great 33 years. I hate to leave. So anyway, now I want to introduce John to you. John Lundquist is a part of our senior center and has been for many years. He's chair of our advisory council and also is president of our golf league out at Fred Richards. So John, why don't you come up and...
Well, thank you. I
Hello.
know you've had a long night, so I'll make this brief. The advisory council, we've made it a habit of going around and visiting other senior centers with the idea of seeing what are they doing, are there things that we ought to be considering for us. Or it works the other way around. I remember we were considering buying a computer game thing where you could bowl, play tennis, and do a number of sports on it. We visited a senior center that had one, and we were all instructed on how to use it and tried it out. But we found that they really weren't making much use of it, and it was kind of difficult to get people used to it. So we decided not to spend that money.
Was that a
so
Wii?
We continue looking for new ideas.
Did you get a Wii?
We did not.
Is that what you were looking at, though?
We also visit different community things. We visited Veep. Very impressive. We learned that one thing they don't need is green beans, but what they do need is rice. 1 pound boxes of rice. They said they can't keep rice on the shelves, so we're going to be conducting a big rice giving. Recently, we just toured Bridging. Again, very impressive place. The founder is the one that took us on tour. Things that they need are towels, and so we may be writing an effort to get people to donate towels. So we try to stay abreast with what's going on in the community. We've had the History Center come and talk to us. We've had Resource Center. The library has been. So we continue to have speakers coming into the Advisory Council. Now I want to switch to the golf course. That, first of all, we play at Fred Richards, and nobody knows where Fred Richards is. I'm amazed at how often I will invite people to play in our league, and they say, well, where do you play? I say, we play at Fred Richards. And you get this blank look. Where's that? So you describe where it is, maybe a little registering. Then you finally tell them, I think it used to be called Normandale, and that seems to ring a bell. thing I'm getting at is that Braemar has a email that goes out every week with pictures and all kinds of things that are going on. Fred Richards doesn't have anything like that. Our way of publicizing every spring to try and get golfers is it's in our newsletter that goes out to all the members of the senior center. That's a pretty limited audience. There's a much bigger audience we'd like to reach. We also make flyers, 8 by 10, and a bunch of us take those around the senior centers, condos, places like that, get them to be. But it's kind of a outmoded way of communicating. I would like to see Fred Richards be able to have an email thing that goes out every week, just like Braemar does, where you can advertise your golf league, and there's more golf leagues at Fred Richards than just ours. I know there's a women's league, and they also have a youth program there. So I think there are a number of things that could enhance marketing Fred Richards more than it is today, and it would help us in growing our league also. In closing, I think, the biggest problem we're going to have at the senior center is replacing Sue. She is really, I think, taking that thing from scratch, and it's an amazing thing. I'm always amazed at all the breadth of the activities, and there's only 1.5 paid staff there. All the rest is done by volunteers, which I think is kind of a good role model. So with that, I know it's a long evening. I'll end now. Thank you for allowing me to be here.
Thank you, sir. All right, move along here.
No, I want to thank you both. I thought that was very interesting, and I can tell you're doing a good job, because if you have problem with parking, that means
it's
that
a good problem. Yeah,
it's a good problem to have. I'm working on a committee that's trying to decide a plan for the Grandview area, which...
Didn't you ask me if I could have a wish?
Oh, I wasn't the one.
Oh, you weren't the one?
No.
Oh.
No, did somebody ask you that?
Yeah.
What is your wish?
Well, more parking.
More parking.
A ramp.
So now, and I just want to know how you're dealing with the senior population, how far away, would the bus barn be too far for seniors to walk to get to the senior center?
Not for all of them, but for a good share of them it would be.
Okay.
You mean across the street? They'd have to come across the street.
They'd have to come across the street.
Yeah, it's quite a ways.
It's too far. Okay.
Any other questions?
Yeah, and my other question is there any limitation, is there any reason why it's not open after 4:30?
Well, the one main reason, of course, it is more and more.
Is it?
More and more,
Okay.
yeah. But the main reason is because of the library. Like this afternoon at 4, they had a great decisions class. When I left, the parking lot was completely full. So what the library tries to do, if you noticed in that letter, is try to have their programming, their special events after 4 o'clock or at 3:30, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, or at 6 o'clock at night, so that we don't have we really take over that parking lot during the day. I mean, if they said what they really thought, you know what I mean? They've been so generous to us during the day with not complaining that much, because, all we need is 18 tables of cards and we've filled up the parking,
Yeah. And we currently don't have an option on the lot that's, when we built it, there's a lot that is owned by the
Opus? Or not by Opus, but by that building. Yeah.
Yeah.
You
Do
wanna
we have
talk
any
about that,
options
John?
on that land, on that parking lot?
Legally, no, not right now. We did learn, we've been in dialogue with management of the owner, and learned through that process that they actually lease some spaces to Edina family physicians. So that's something we may want to consider if we get to a point where we want to offer more activities and more classes during times when parking is a problem like tonight. That's something we may want to consider. I think the worst option, in my view, to consider is converting what little green space is left in the development and convert that to parking and take what is our little Grandview Park. Would not like to go that route.
Right. And I wouldn't, I'm in agreement with that. Is there, I do see that a lot of seniors are parking along Sherwood Drive, which is on the other.
From the Edina Family Physicians.
Well, I don't know, that the whole street's
Otherwise, there's
usually.
like park and ride, right along the road, that people park there in the morning and take the bus.
I see. Okay, so that's not
so
library,
seniors
that's not
never
senior.
get to use that, no. Or the library doesn't use it either, no.
So you think that's mostly park and ride on that?
I
on
think it's park
Sherwood?
and ride, uh-huh.
Okay. Okay, that's good to know. And it's also, it's unfortunate because you've kept it a beautiful facility.
Mm-hmm.
I've been at meetings there in the evening, and I've wondered, why we're not really marketing to rent those spaces, actively marketing to rent those spaces. And is that why you
we
think?
always have to take the library into consideration, right? It's like, like I said, we dominate that parking lot during the day, so this is their time to be able to do it. And then Friday nights, Adaptive Rec uses it, and Saturday and Sunday afternoons, I think they use it also. But they certainly don't take up the whole lot, during that time. And that would mean hiring somebody,
Which spaces inside the building are they using?
They use the senior center, like
The
for Friends
Sherwood
of the
room?
Library.
Yeah, they use the Sherwood room and.
Well, we use that for rentals at night also, because that's the one place that we can rent out at night, and that's where we do it to family physicians and to the different medical places. We have a weight loss group that comes in there.
Right, it's just
and
the
they
one
rent
room at the moment,
that
right?
one room because we lock up the senior center, then we don't have to have staff there, and then they can use the bathroom from the library, and then there's somebody official in the building, and that is the people from the library, and then they close at 8:00.
And so if you had more parking, would you think that your programming would grow?
Oh, I think so. I think, anything's possible, sure. I mean, I was thinking the other day with the room that the art center uses. See, when there's an art class or the art center is using it, they don't bring, 10 would be a lot of people for a class, so that's only 10 cars, so that's not so bad. But if we had more parking, we could certainly use the room that they're using. Right now, we can program just so much because there's just so much parking. I'm concerned, even the day that we're having the man from Dayton's come, we're doing it on a Wednesday morning, and we're doing it when we feel that there'll be the fewest people coming, and the library will be just barely open. And, so then we should be able to get 80 people.
Yeah. Well, it's, like I said, it's a good problem to have. You're doing something right.
It is, but
So,
I sure wish we would have had more in the beginning.
Yeah. So, and my last question is, with respect, you mentioned the dome, that you have a
they
group
use Holy
going
Angels.
over to Holy Angels. Is that the only group that you currently have that uses a dome?
At Holy Angels?
Or any dome?
Yeah, right.
It's the only, and it's the only one. Okay. We'll get you on our survey list, though.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
If I could ask a few follow-up questions. First of all, thank you, Sue. I served there for 4 years. I was one of your volunteers, which you mentioned, and it is a very rewarding experience, so I can identify with what you're saying there. But did I hear you say that you actually avoid daytime programming
Well,
because of parking issues?
Where the art room is, we could always have, if the art room was available to the senior center, we could have something else in there, but where would they park? If we had 30 people in there, there'd be no place for them to park with everything else that's going on.
And is your current utilization, or what is your current room utilization in terms of rentals? How much time during any particular day are rooms, all of the rooms actually rented?
Today, Medica, they used it for 3 hours today, classroom 2, and they probably had 8 people that came in, But from that, we got
Okay.
$90-some dollars.
Well, for those of you who haven't been there, it is a premier physical facility. It is a real asset to the community, and I would like to think we could see that place full, both daytime and evenings. And it seems to be underutilized from a lot of different perspectives in terms of.
But would you want us to compete with the library? I'm saying
the relationship with the library is, I'm not sure. I guess I'd have to look into the document between the city and Hennepin County and the library. So I'm not suggesting that we should compete. I'm just saying that it is there in the evening. As a facility, it's very attractive. And I would think that parking notwithstanding, there would be ways to utilize the facility in the evening and ways to try and market and utilize the facility. Have you ever rented parts of the facility to non-seniors?
I'll tell you, the firearms uses it. That's non-seniors, that's young, but they don't rent from it. I have the list. Because I figured this rental business would come up. Okay. Non-rentals, the Grandview Planning. So that's non-seniors, okay? And it can be some seniors in there, of course, but they're there many Thursday nights. Okay. The City of Edina uses it a lot. When John calls, if he needs it for, or if there's some group that needs to come over because the parade committee or whatever it might be, they use it. The voting, of course, will be there tomorrow. Twin Cities Harmonica Society has used it. We just grandfathered them in. They had asked to use it when we were up at the community center, and they're there on Monday nights. Firearm safety is there for 6 weeks in the spring and in the fall on Mondays and Tuesdays. Adaptive recreation uses it May through September. The adaptive craft classes every Friday night. Adaptive cheerleading, adaptive meetings, preschool meetings. And the Edina Library uses it. And if you read what she says, and they do the Friends of the Library, do their special events. They use our fireside room, as well as like Edina Reads. And they'll get 80 people. So there you go. There's the parking lot, in that evening. Now our rentals at play, we have Medica, Blue Cross Blue Shield, Humana Health Partners, Edina Family Physicians, Nutritional Weight and Wellness, Homeowners Association, people that know of our place, Dr. Pika, we have a podiatrist that comes in, and of course Tony Ames with his Bridge Group, we have an agreement with him. We have the Bees Grant dancing group that pays every week, and the Edina Art Center that uses it daily. So those are the ones.
What are the total rentals that you have?
How much do we have in the total rentals? I thought is it on your, I don't know. It was hard to read.
There's a line here that says senior center rentals $14,645. Does that sound about right? About right.
Yeah, that's about right.
And what is the total? I mean, one of the things that the Park Board has been looking at are all the various facilities we have, from enterprise facilities to the ball fields to whatever. In terms of revenues and operating expenses, can you summarize sort of what the total revenues for the senior center are and what the total cost?
Our budget was $98,000 this year. I met with Eric Ruggeman. He just said, I don't want to go there, but he said you're doing very well. Our revenues were, I think we brought in $90,000, and $50,000 was, look, if what I gave you today, wasn't it?
Yeah, we have a copy. Yeah, so this about $90,000 in revenues, and your expenditures are about $144,000. Plus, I guess we add on the cross charges to Hennepin County, and then we add on depreciation. I'm not quite sure how to add the numbers up. But that sounds about right.
Yeah, from the very beginning, I mean, even when we were at the community center, we have always tried to have people pay their way in one way or another. It might be nominal, as you know, what we charge 25 cents per person. We take that, so it's $1 a table when they play, but we get 18 tables, whatever. You know, that adds up after a while. So we try to have people pay as well as they pay their dues, which is $17 a year. And, you know,
Yes,
this seems to be
we've
very-
seen the fee schedule.
Yeah.
And so I think I understand the fees to the
Right.
seniors. And really the point that I think I'm driving at is that we have to subsidize, the city has to subsidize the senior center to a fair degree. And as with any segment of the population, certainly we feel that that segment is deserving of consideration by the city. At the same time, we're trying to understand how we can best try and cover the costs
Right.
of that segment of the community through user fees and through other mechanisms. So in terms of the senior center facility, my only point was, is there some way, not necessarily by charging senior citizens more, I don't think I'm necessarily suggesting that, but because it's such a nice facility, is there some way we could increase the utilization of the facility and still provide the seniors with everything, all of the programming that you have been providing them?
Well, if we start renting and we start having, that we'd have to hire staff to be there at night. So there you go. I don't know if that off balances itself. I mean, from the way that we're doing it now, we do it during the day, and therefore we're there. You know, there's only 1.5 of us.
Right.
Right. So, I mean, I guess you'd have to figure with that off balance of, you know, hiring another person
Right.
to be there.
Have you, anybody run those kinds of numbers, John?
And then is that extra cleaning too? I don't know. I don't know what happens
Oh,
with
yeah,
that.
there'd be
Yeah.
more interior maintenance. We'd have to run the cost. And is there an opportunity to make money to do that? Possibly, if people are willing to pay the fee, if that was the mission, is to make more money. And that's something we can certainly take a look at.
Well, and I would say that's not the only, I mean, it's a wonderful facility, and, you know, I was hearing that the city council was kicked out of their, you know, the community room upstairs because there was a choir, Edina Choral Arts or something, had rented it, and so I know that there is a lack of rooms to rent for our, you know, our residents here, so it's not just for revenue.
Right.
It would be to use the facilities that we have.
And more it's being used at night, you know, all the time, you know. But I think we always have to think about the library being upstairs, you know, with the parking, especially Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday nights.
Question, the November calendar has some items with a star, some items with a heart.
You see that? It says,
What does that mean?
see, there's a little thing over there that says, one is you register through community education, and the other one says that you register at the senior center. Do you see it now? Yeah, okay, it is, that's what it is. Yeah. Oh, you know what, John and I had him look at that Dewtown today, and we certainly want to get into that, you know. Have any of you seen that ad with Mayor Hovland? It is wonderful. It's absolutely wonderful. So we're ready to do to the Dewtown.
Yeah,
All right,
dancing.
anything else?
Yeah.
No, thank you.
Thank you,
Okay,
Sue. Thank you,
thanks.
John. Have a great night. Okay, 60 was Braemar Chorus Revenues Analysis. This was something that Ellen was requesting, and I think it was something that perhaps when we were having a discussion of the driving range expansion, what type of performance might we expect if we were to increase the driving range. Something like this would have been helpful, I think, to further that discussion. So, Ellen, here it is for you.
Thank you, and I want to thank Todd for creating this. It was most helpful. I especially like the color coding for the changes in volume. That was helpful. And what I really, he's not here for me to ask questions about, but I'm sure he will be back to discuss more on both the proposed driving range plans and other things in future meetings. And this will really be good as a a tool for projections.
I agree, and I think this was the kind of data that City Council was requesting too recently. So, yeah, this is helpful, and I think it might be helpful to see more of this, upcoming budgets, next year. So, is that what you're looking for, Ellen?
That is,
All
I'm
right.
sorry, that is what I'm looking for. I was slightly, and have been last year when I just get the list of, these are the proposed fee, these are the fees now, and these are the proposed fees, and we're supposed to come up with a plan for saying these are, that, we're going to make revenue or not without any other information. So this would be quite helpful in the future for when there's proposals for increases in fees.
Thanks, John, and pass that along to Todd, too, for his work on that. Correspondence and petitions. We got a couple in regards to the pool, but I don't think we need to cover that, do we?
No, those are included in your package.
Okay. Chair and Park Board member comments. Anybody?
I do have a comment or concern. I've been going to the dog park very frequently, and it's the waste, dog waste has become a considerable issue. I had a very painful ride home one night, and I know another person's dog got sick because there are so many feces at the park. And I think the problem is growing because it gets dark at night, so, people aren't as motivated to clean up, and you also cannot see where you're walking, and it's harder to monitor your dog. And then on Saturday I went, and it was daylight, and I'd say about only 25% had collars on there. There are about 15 dogs there coming and going, but so I know there are signs there, and I know that it's hard to police that, but I'm wondering if there's a sign that can be put out there temporarily saying, this has become an issue. If you're not wearing, I would prefer to go the route, if you're not wearing your collar, you need to leave the premises or whatever the policy is. But it definitely is affecting frequent park goers, and I have heard some park goers say that they will probably not renew their dog license if it continues. So.
Appreciate the input. That's an ongoing issue. Now, I think the way I would like to handle this is bring the matter up to attention to our animal control officer, Timothy Hunter, and see what ideas he might have, short of putting up more signs. I think probably some more enforcement. We also have a group that's been willing to pick up on occasion and just clean sweep the whole park in return for some advertising. And they've even offered and given us some doggy bags with containers with their names on them. So we're trying to address that. And it's problem. And the other thing I heard from you was lighting. We did put some outdoor lighting there. Probably maybe not enough. That's something I think we'll have to take a look at. That's something we may want to consider and add to our capital improvement plan to get that done. I think that's all I have, but we'll take it into consideration and appreciate the input. Thank you.
Perhaps we could deputize Kia. You get her a badge.
I have a quick comment because I use the dog park a lot, and at the Eden Prairie Dog Park there's a long-handled shovel and a big plastic pail, and it really does amaze me how many people become a custodian of the park, and during daylight hours, not at night, they'll go with the big shovel, and and I'd be happy to donate a big shovel if you think that would help. But it does help in Eden Prairie. People use it a lot.
There are 2 individuals that go through every morning and pick up, so that's great.
Staff comments?
Nothing tonight.
Ed? Saw your flow riders under construction. Yeah?
Excavation is done, and we've begun pouring concrete. It's a good sign.
That's exciting. All right. Entertain a motion to adjourn. All in favor? Second? All in favor? Yes.